Duke, what's with the hair? You got aspirin?
You should feel better momentarily, and your memory will slowly return.
Duke, what's with the hair?
The specific...
Yeah, Bob. You remember Bob, the guy that's gonna launch a nuclear attack? You got any more abuse you want to hurl my way? Or are you ready to go in here and take care of Bob?
What do you propose, Bob?
When in doubt, C4.
Well, hey there, campers. It's your friendly neighborhood Star Wars Penguin Bob. And we're here to continue on with putting Star Wars, Disney Star Wars that is, on trial. Especially after you've ever seen the Ahsoka finale last night. This is definitely warranted. Hey, Perrin. Actually, I didn't make it on time. I normally start at 2. But I had to delay it by 30 minutes because of the female alarm thing. So anyway, once again, we are going to be watching the Star Wars on Trial by Film Threat Critics Court, a.k.a. Chris Gore. He's our honorable judge as well. And the link to the video we're going to be watching is in the description, as well as a link to all the court documents, and also even a link to Film Threat's YouTube channel, And I encourage you to like and subscribe over there. And if you also like what I'm doing here, I encourage you to like and subscribe this one as well. So anyway, let's get into it, shall we? Okay. Today's court, we are actually picking up with court count number 7, which is the negligent misuse of legacy characters. So let's just go ahead and start watching it. And once again, I've got my closed captioning on because I like using my advanced profanity filter. For the most part, it picks up most things. Occasionally, it doesn't. Like last week, it didn't. But nevertheless, it not only catches things, but it also makes things sometimes humorous. Like Potato Kennedy. And before we get started, as always, you need to make sure you're ready to go with your iced coffee or your something cold to drink, because you got to stay hydrated. Anyway, so sip them frequent and often. Let's get to it, shall we? Hey, Tracy. You have your water ready for Potato Kennedy. Yeah. Oh, there's Anna.
Oh,
Star Wars girl.
Thank you, Ms.
Honorable
Girl.
Chris Gore.
Is it Ms. or Mix?
It's Miss.
Miss. Excuse me, Ms. Girl. Thank you for showing up to court today. We will be
Or if that means
debating.
Alan's gone.
We're continuing in the matter of the fans versus Lucasfilm Disney for the murder of the Star Wars franchise. The count today that we will be debating is count 7. I will bring it up on screen. And Ms. Girl, if you would read the charges for count
she's young.
7.
She's a
bring it up
YouTuber.
on screen here. I will
Precise.
zoom in if you can't see that.
I'm going to go ahead and
Count
show it on my
7
screen
if
here so you can see it a little bit
Okay.
better.
A little bit more, please.
You've got it.
A little bit more. There we go. And then
It's right there in highlighted
scroll
blue.
over so I can see the whole thing, please.
So I'm not going to read it, they'll read it.
There we
Right,
are.
right there. All right. So count 7 is the film threat jury, in the name and behalf of the citizens of the fandom of Star Wars, charge and accuse Lucasfilm Disney with the offense of negligent misuse of legacy characters on or about the 30th day of October 2012. Lucasfilm Disney did begin to negligently misuse legacy characters like Luke Skywalker by making them act out of character and behave in ways that contradicted their established personalities. This further contributed to the overall dissatisfaction of fans with the new Star Wars films.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you, Ms. Girl. Also would like
Oh, she
to
did blow it up a little bit.
congratulate you
Thank you.
on your recent engagement. I would like to say congratulations and thank you.
Cool.
I know that you recently attended a wedding, and my understanding is you were with Mr. Ng's daughter, and the two of you partied too hearty, as they say.
Oh, that's news to me. I was not aware that I was around Mr. Ng's daughter, but I did go to a wedding, and that was on the other side of the country, and unfortunately, I do get ill when I fly, so I'm going to have to say goodbye to everyone, and good luck to everyone today, prosecution specifically, and I will be back next week, hopefully fully healthy, but thank you, and good luck.
Thank you and congratulations again. Court is now in session.
Jet lag is a real thing. Okay, one moment here. Okay. I think we're back. Can you hear me? I hope. Cool. Yeah, I figured out what happened. Just this very second, Windows decided to kick off checking on my drivers. Isn't that wonderful? Stupid Windows. Anyway, let's see if we can't continue on here. I gotta mute the because it's playing the thing here. Well, that ain't muting it. There it goes. Let's see if I can go past it a little bit here. Okay. Yeah, you should be able to hear it. Not picking me, I tell you.
Court is now in order. A quick
There's Mr.
housekeeping,
Blackwood.
Issue. Mr. Ng is not in attendance in court today. He is traveling to Dallas, Texas to be at a film festival, so Mr. Ng is not here.
Yeah, I called it. He wasn't there.
We have our regular court sketch artist, Mr. Blackwood, Todd Blackwood. You can follow him on Instagram. And you can
I
also
got a
go
link to his website down in the description.
.com and see all of his work. So check out Mr. Blackwood's work. He will be sketching members of the prosecution and the defense today, as well as artwork inspired by today's proceedings. This might be the most important count in this case.
Really?
It is the negligent misuse of legacy characters. Joining us today
That's
as
from
a
Johanna
member
Greedo,
of the
but
prosecution,
Greedo's like
and
Mickey.
it appears to be the sole member of the prosecution, Mr. Cobra.
Yeah, that ain't
Is
ever
it
going to
DA
happen.
Cobra, Mr. Cobra, how would you like me to refer to
Because
you?
Thank you very much.
they would have
Judge,
to
for
acknowledge
having
that
me.
Disney
Mr.
would have to
Cobra
acknowledge
will
that
be
they got a
absolutely
problem.
Fine. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to fight for what once was Star Wars.
Jeremy from
Thank you
DA
very
Cobra.
much, Mr. Cobra. Joining us for the defense.
Wow, he's wearing a tie.
We have a team
I actually know this
to
YouTuber.
defend Count 7. On the defense, Alex. You can say your thank you,
Your Honor.
Or
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. I recommend showing respect in court. Joining us again also is Dr. Gordo.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And simply Sam.
Thank you, Judge.
This is how things are going to work. It's very simple. The prosecution will present their case first, presenting evidence in any form. You can also just simply make your argument. You present your case. There'll be an opportunity for cross-examination and the use of witnesses. Today we have a special surprise witness joining us today. And then after cross-examination, the defense presents their case, and then also time for cross-examination, and then open debate. We end on open debate. But joining us today, and I think it's very important for this count. It is very important. It's someone that may have had a hand in why count 7 is so important. And that is J.J. Abrams is here.
Oh, good old Jar Jar.
The mystery box represents infinite possibility.
Well, Mr. Abrams, you may think that this is a joke fake court. I will tell you that this is a very serious case, and your testimony can be used by either side, the defense or the prosecution. And I want to let our audience know that this J.J. Abrams is using a form of AI and ChatGPT in order for the responses to be accurate to what J.J. Abrams would, how J.J. Abrams would actually respond. Isn't that right?
Mystery box?
Precisely. And so, again, available to both the prosecution and the defense. You have Mr. Abrams here for questioning. Feel free to use Mr. Abrams how you will. But it's time now to begin with the prosecution of count 7.
This should be interesting.
Your case, Mr. Cobra. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the court and the Honorable Judge Gore for allowing the prosecution this opportunity to stand up for Star Wars, George Lucas's Star Wars. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today we are going to talk about a crime, but not just any crime, a crime 30 years in the making, a crime that spans generations, a crime so disgusting and motivation so deceiving that when we are done, without a shadow of a doubt, you will understand the pain and the suffering that has been caused to fans all around the world. Disney and Lucasfilm executives set out to destroy a fandom and decades of storytelling and passion. They decided to focus on 3 of the most iconic characters we have ever seen in entertainment. Why? Because you, the fan, loved those characters. It's because you loved them, and that was unacceptable to the powers that be. At first, they used our nostalgia to pull us in. A very disgusting and devious practice. We have video evidence of Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm, lying straight to George Lucas's face. We have quotes from Bob Iger talking about how George Lucas himself felt used after the fact. We have quotes from George Lucas talking about how he sold the company to white slavers. We have evidence, indisputable evidence, of writers being fired because they focused too much on legacy characters. Legacy characters. The characters that you loved, the characters that you were interested in, people were fired because they wanted to focus a Star Wars story on those characters. That's what we're talking about today. We are going to talk about everything from the beginning. Disney and Lucasfilm never cared about growing or complementing this universe. They only wanted to hijack it and destroy it, they did, unfortunately. I am simply a humble Star Wars fan. I grew up loving Luke Skywalker in a galaxy far, far away. Luke Skywalker was the standard for me when he looked over and saw those twin suns. It hit me and millions of other fans in ways that I can't properly describe. It was magic. It was Star Wars. We, the fans, gave Lucasfilm every opportunity, and they took it.
I got
they
one
took
chapter
our goodwill
left.
And they spit in our faces. And then when we complained about the spit in our face, they blamed us for the spit that was in our face. We will never forgive them for what they did to us. We wanted to see our hero, Luke Skywalker. We wanted to see our princess. We wanted to see our favorite scoundrel become the man that we always knew he would become. Instead, we got old, depressed, and angry shells of what our heroes once were. A crime has certainly been committed, and the people responsible will pay, and justice will be served. Thank you for allowing me these opening statements. Now we have some video to talk about, and it is going to let you see just how terrible these people are. Some of them are in the courtroom today. And Mr. J.J. Abrams, I understand that there's probably too many white men on the panel today, and you're probably a little uncomfortable. And I just want you to know we're all happy you're uncomfortable. But let's show you some of this video evidence that we have right here. And we're going to start out with something that's just so disgusting to watch. And I'm sharing my screen right now. This is really awful, what I'm about to show you. This is video evidence of Kathy lying to George Lucas. I'm sharing my screen now for the court. If the court could share my screen, be much appreciated. Here we go right here. This is when the announcement was made that George Lucas was selling to Lucasfilm and appointing Kathy.
Oh, there goes again. We may be running out of liquid.
You will feel exactly like I do after this video.
I always said I wasn't going to do any more, and that's true. So I'm not going to do any more. But that doesn't mean I'm unwilling to turn it over to Kathy to do more. I have story treatments of 7, 8, and 9, and a bunch of other movies, and obviously we have hundreds of books and comics and everything you could possibly imagine. So, I sort of moved that treasure trove of stories and various things to Kathy, and I have complete confidence that she's going to take them and make great movies. I'm doing this so that the films will have a longer life, and so that more fans and
Worse
people
than the
can enjoy
Sith
them
she is.
into the future. It's a very big universe I've created, and there's a lot of stories that are sitting in there.
The main thing is to protect these characters, make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them.
The main thing is to protect these characters.
Right.
Disgusting lies, pulling in our nostalgia and making promises that they cannot keep. And I stand before you today in 2023, and everyone that has watched Disney Star Wars understands that was a lie. That was a lie, and we all know it. Let's let the lies continue.
And that the universe of Star Wars continues to grow.
I just said that I would back her up, and I would be there if you know, and especially helping with the script and making sure the script sort of, there's a lot of blank spots in the story treatment that hopefully we can fill in. And
I think the incredible thing about George is, you know, this is not like a series of books like Harry Potter where you've already got a template of what the stories might be. These are original stories and original ideas that come out of a world that essentially is in George's head. So the beauty of the collaboration that can continue is as we work our way through these scripts, if we're sitting and saying, you know, I wonder if this character can do that, or does this make sense within the rules of Star Wars? It really, he's the keeper of the flame when it comes to that.
He's the keeper of the flame when it comes to that, talking about relying on George and his creativity and his genius to continue to help them develop Lucasfilm and Star Wars. I want, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want you to remember these quotes from as we continue to compile the evidence to show you the devious nature of what Lucasfilm and Disney has done, the lies, and the disgusting behavior. Let's continue on.
It's the same thing with the first three films. That's all my job is to be the keeper of the flame. Well, it's also based on human behavior, human psychology, you know, mythology, which is the sort of archaeology of human behavior and thinking. And since it has those motifs, it is very universal. And everybody can relate to it. It's about good and evil in us, as well as our institutions. So, and the idea that some of us think we're really great people, but in the real world we're not. We're terrible people.
Or you can make bad choices.
Well, you make bad choices, but you...
Oh, yes, we can, George, can't we? We can make bad choices. There's one sitting right across the table from you.
Run your life in a very selfish way, and you think you're doing good when you're actually not. And at the same time, it's you know, how do democracies turn back into dictatorships? Why do people who have the power to have the freedom and everything turn it over to somebody who's going to take it all away from them? It's happened through history forever and ever. And all Star Wars is a way of updating that idea to say, watch out, because there are people out there who don't play by the rules, and if you're not careful, you're going to lose all your freedom. And at the same time,
living in
those
a clown
people
world
who may not play by the rules because they're selfish and greedy turn themselves into evil people who don't care about other people.
There you go.
Wow,
Very
it's amazing
interesting language there used by the great George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars. Now,
think he knew
this
something?
was made around the time that the purchase of Disney and Lucasfilm was made. Again, keeping George on, using his creativity, using his genius. We want to talk to George about decisions on characters, things like that. All of these promises were made in order to manipulate the fans into believing that this was done for the right reasons. But again, I remind you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, negligence is what's at stake here. Negligence. And how they treated the legacy characters. I have more video for you, and it is really, really disgusting, but we have more. This is the great George Lucas after the fact, after seeing what Disney had done. Now remember, promises to honor George, honor his characters, honor the legacy, utilize George, talk to George, get his opinions, all of his feedback, get his stamp of approval. That didn't happen, ladies and gentlemen, because lies were told to you, to me, and to everyone that loves Star Wars. Here we go. The audio might be a little low on this. I'll try to bump it up.
Let me just talk about the upcoming Star Wars.
Wow, that is low.
The Force Awakens. How do you feel about it?
Well,
It's, I made the decision to sell the company, the Star Wars. I made that decision because I looked at the future. I looked at the fact that I was going to have a baby. I looked at the fact that I was married.
So he asked him what he thought of The Force Awakens.
Married, and I looked at the fact that I wanted to build a museum, and I looked at the fact that I wanted to make experimental films. So my life was going on a different track. I noticed the last few movies that I'd made were costing the company a lot of money, and I didn't think that was fair to the people that worked there or the company. And so I had made a decision to move ahead on the next Star Wars series, and we were starting to do that.
So you were starting to make the next Star Wars.
Yeah.
You as director and filmmaker.
So, and we were working with a writer. It wasn't quite working out, but I was also, I was also stepping away a little bit and turning things over to Kathy Kennedy. And so what happened was Disney said, or Bob Iger said, if you really want to sell your company, if you're thinking about selling it, because we were talking about retirement and what are you going to do after all this kind of stuff. And he said, well, if you really want to sell it, we're very interested. So that started that ball rolling.
So George didn't go to Disney. Disney came to him.
Correct.
Showing the deceptive nature from the beginning, trying to take full advantage of George.
And I knew from, and I had the story treatments or, outlines, and we were we were working on scripts. And so I sold it. But I knew when I sold it, I said, I've tried to make movies where I step away, just sort of Empire and Return of the Jedi. And after about a couple of weeks, I knew I couldn't do that. I had to stand over the shoulder of the director, help him, whisper in his ear constantly, no, do this, do that, and be there to help guide it. And it was much harder than if I had just directed it myself. J.J. Abrams, he's a good director and he's a good friend.
J.J. Abrams, who is with us today, George Lucas considered a good friend at the time. We will follow up on that
sort of thing. But he's also a top director, his own company, all this other stuff. And Disney, who was a little nervous. There's one of the issues was the first three movies had all kinds of issues. They looked at the stories and they said, we want to make something for the fans. So I said, all I wanted to do was tell a story of what happened. It started here and it went there. And it's all about generations, and it's about, the issues of fathers and sons and grandfathers. And it's a family soap opera.
A family soap opera, and according to George Lucas himself, Disney said they wanted to make something for the fans. Again, deceptive behavior, using language that was not true, but it meant to pull people in from a nostalgic standpoint. Manipulating people, gaslighting people. This has been their method since the beginning. And as we continue to show you this evidence, although at this time, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I think you can already see the case that the prosecution is laying out for you is indefensible. You can't defend what we are seeing right now. This is disgusting. But Star Wars is important enough to show you all of the crimes committed by Disney and Lucasfilm, and we are going to do that. It's going to be uncomfortable to some. Some people in the audience right now maybe have tears in their eyes remembering what Disney did to them, causing emotional damage. And I feel for all of you. My heart goes out to every single one of you that.
And everything actually George is saying right here in this little video, Bob Iger also confirmed by writing it in his book. So it all happened like that.
Is having an emotional response to this. And I apologize for having to bring the pain of what Disney and Lucasfilm did to you. I apologize for having to make you relive that. But in order to bring the people responsible to justice, we have to go through this process. But just understand that we as George Lucas Star Wars fans, we're here for you, and we're going to wrap our arms around you. Let's continue on.
Ultimately, we call it space opera, but people don't realize it's actually a soap opera. And it's all about family problems and
yeah,
it's not about spaceships. So They decided they didn't want to use those stories. They decided they were going to go do their own thing, and so I decided, fine. But basically, I'm not going to try to. They weren't that keen to have me involved anyway. But at the same time, I said, I'm not going to. If I get in there, I'm just going to cause trouble, because they're not going to do what I want them to do. So I don't have the control to do that anymore, and all I would do is muck everything up. So I said, okay.
Okay, Perrin. Well, if you need to go lay down, man,
let them go their
rest.
way.
Go for
and
it.
it really does come down to a simple rule of life, which is when you break up with somebody, the first rule is no phone calls. The second rule, you don't go over to their house and drive by to see what they're doing. The third one is you don't show up at their coffee shop or the things.
Oh, okay.
You just say, no, gone, history, I'm moving forward. Because every time you do, and you know, we all.
I thought it meant physically because you've had that problem
you do
before.
something like that, you're opening the wound again.
I'm perfectly okay with you
just
just lurking if that's what you need to do.
And it's a very,
do what you got to do. Take care of you.
Thing to do. But you have to just cut it off and say, okay, end the ball game. I got to move on. And everything in your body says, don't, you can't. These are my kids. So
all those Star Wars films.
All the Star Wars films.
They were your kids.
Yeah, well, they are. I loved them. I created them. I'm very intimately involved in them, and obviously to sell them off.
That's good.
I sold them to the white slavers that
Shiners are
take
nice.
these things and.
But having said all.
Sold them to the white slavers. Now, again, George Lucas considers these Star Wars films his children. So that means that George Lucas had trust when he made this deal with Disney and Lucasfilm. He had trust and he had faith that they were going to do the right things. And now you see with this interview, we see a much different George Lucas than the moment that we saw earlier. And at this moment, this is a man who has realized that the people that have control of his universe don't actually care about his universe. And it's really, really disgusting. For the benefit of time, we're going to slow that one down and not show the rest of that one. We got a few more right here. This is a quick moment right here where Kathleen and J.J. Abrams, one of the gentlemen that is here in the courtroom today, they talk about George like he's not there. Here we go.
Question. I guess because it spoke to a new generation. It was that idea that there would be young people for whom Luke Skywalker was essentially a myth.
There isn't a day that goes by or went by as we were making the movie where we don't talk about George. You know, it's the standard, what would George do? One of the things that we talked about.
Now, I'm going to refrain from using profanity in the court today out of respect for the court.
I appreciate that.
But when I hear language like that, when George Lucas himself is alive and you can contact him at any point in time, but you're sitting there pretending like you can't even find him because he's dead, disgusting. But it just continues to show the disrespect. Even Mark Hamill agrees with the disrespect.
When I read 8, I told Ryan, I fundamentally disagree with virtually everything you've decided about my character. But, other than that, I can't really describe more, but
says he fundamentally disagrees with everything Ryan Johnson did with the character in episode 8. Here's another line from Mark Hamill.
And I think he has more leeway to really mess things up. It's Colin Trevorrow that's going to have to tie all the loose ends together.
I mean, you talked about the reaction to the first script, obviously, that funny kind of thing about waiting for Luke to appear,
Right.
etc. What was your reaction when you finally got a chance to read this one? Were you satisfied and excited in terms of how integral Luke is and was to the story? Were you surprised by what Ryan chose to do?
Yes, I was very surprised. And I have to tell you, and I should have realized that when I read 7, I said, I loved everybody's part except mine.
There we go. Everybody's part except mine. We have a couple more now. Honorable Judge Gore, seeing as I'm the only person on the prosecution side, am I allowed at least another few minutes to present my case?
Just a few minutes, Mr. Cobra. And then additionally, I want to let you know you showed a video with Mr. Abrams. You do have Mr. Abrams here, and you will be subject to cross-examination
Absolutely.
After your presentation concludes. Please continue.
Absolutely. Okay, let me show you this one really quick. This is Harrison Ford talking about the
here we go.
Solo
I've
movie.
seen this one.
Here's his response.
Are you looking forward to watching a Han Solo movie as a fan?
Not really.
Not really.
So clearly, good old Harrison Ford. And the last video evidence I want to show is from a great YouTuber by the name of Jeremy Johns talking about Bob Iger's book. And listen to
that's
what
the book
Bob
I was talking about
Iger,
earlier.
after the fact, said about George Lucas.
What's it called? I don't know the name of the book. Bob Iger, My Journey, or something. Bob Iger, My Farts Smell Like Roses. I'm sure it's called that. And in one of these chapters in this book, the chapter, again, I don't know the name of the chapter, so we'll just call it That Time We Butt Fucked Lucas and then made him smile at our faces at Star Wars Celebration. Again, not called that. I'm making shit. But this next part I'm not making up. In Bob Iger's book, Bob Iger, who's the CEO of Disney, for those of you who don't know, he's the guy who owns the Monopoly board. He's that kid you don't want to play with because you're like, you own everything. Anywhere I land, I'm screwed. Point is, Bob Iger straight up says George Lucas felt betrayed by what they did with Star Wars. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put a link.
So there you go, right there. A lot of video evidence to show you what we have been through as Star Wars fans. And again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury and our wonderful audience out there, I know that was an emotional journey for many of you. It was an emotional journey for me as well. Not easy to watch and relive all of that, but necessary to get to the point where we need to go. So that is the prosecution's case against Disney's Star Wars. I thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to present this to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Cobra, for your presentation. You are now, you could talk to Mr. Abrams. We can also move on to the cross-examination from the defense.
I mean, if Mr. Abrams is available for a few moments, I could ask him a couple of questions. So,
all right, Mr. Abrams.
Your Honor.
Hello, Mr. Abrams. Not good to talk to you at all, but thank you for being here. I would just like to ask you, in what planet, and you said in the video that I showed with you and Kathy, in what planet do you think people don't know who Luke Skywalker is, so they have to be reintroduced to him? How does that mindset work? Because you said that your reasoning for not having Luke as a vocal point is because there's a new generation of people that don't know Luke. Who doesn't know who Luke Skywalker is?
You know, the idea was to continue the story and to begin with that young woman who felt like Luke Skywalker was a myth, and to tell a story that was not just history repeating itself, but a story that embraced the movies that we know as the actual history of this galaxy. So that they are still living in a place, you know, where there is good versus evil. They're still living in the shadow of what has come before, still grappling with the sins of the father and the people who have preceded them.
Okay. Well, let me, if I can share my screen, I do have some direct quotes that I would like to speak with Mr. Abrams about episode 7. And it's right here. This is from an IndieWire interview. And I'm sharing my screen once again. And it says, in a recent Q&A with J.J. Abrams, Lawrence Kasdan, and Michael Arndt, the screenwriter revealed some pretty intriguing details about early drafts in The Force Awakens. The most eye-opening is that in earlier versions of the screenplay, Luke Skywalker was a much bigger force in the movie. Now, Michael Arndt is an Oscar-winning screenwriter. Michael Arndt wrote a little movie that many of you have maybe heard of called Toy Story 3. Pretty sure people like Toy Story 3. Pretty sure it did a good job of honoring the characters. Well, Michael Arndt was brought on to write the screenplay for episode 7 before J.J. Abrams was brought on. After J.J., this is what happened, ladies and gentlemen. And before I show you this, again, if there are emotionally unstable people in the audience, you might want to turn away from the text that I'm about to show you because it's quite disturbing. This is from Michael Arndt. Early on, I tried to write versions of the story where Rey is at home. Her home is destroyed, and then she goes on the road and meets Luke. And then she goes and kicks the bad guy's ass. Arndt said, it just never worked, and I struggled with this. This was back in 2012. Apparently, the issue was Luke's presence was always upstaging everyone in the script. Yeah. It just felt like every time Luke came in and entered the movie, he just took over, Arndt continued. Suddenly, you didn't care about your main character anymore because, OF, Luke Skywalker is here. I want to see what he is going to do. So that tells me that you, JJ, entered this situation You saw that Luke Skywalker
Luke is
was the
pivotal
focus,
to all of Star Wars.
and that Luke
Crying out
Skywalker was
loud.
taking attention away from the
It's
new
Luke
characters,
Skywalker.
which of course he is, because it is Luke Mother effing Skywalker, and he should be taking the attention. And you then fired Michael Arndt and blew up the entire script because you didn't want Luke Skywalker to be the focus of a Star Wars
Wow.
movie,
I didn't know
especially
that.
the lead movie in the sequel trilogy. That's how that appears, Mr. Abrams. How would you like to respond to that?
Look, the lesson is that you have to plan things the best you can. And you always need to be able to respond to the unexpected. And the unexpected can come in all sorts of forms.
That was a terrible answer.
I do
What
think
does that
that,
answer
there's
mean?
nothing more important than knowing where you're going.
Yeah, that answer is about as good as your Star Wars. So I guess we can go ahead and call it par for the course. Mr. Abrams, it seems
But they
like
technically didn't
questioning
have a
you is about
plan
as
either.
worthless as revisiting any of your films. So
Because Daisy Ridley came out during an interview and actually said that when they actually made 7, 8, and 9, there actually really was no plan. They just kind of did it. So his answer doesn't make a whole lot of sense with that respect as well. Anyway.
So I would say the prosecution is willing to be cross-examined by people not named J.J. Abrams. Thank you.
Your
Yeah,
Honor,
it
I
shows,
literally
doesn't
have
it?
a mystery box at home that I've had for decades, and I haven't opened it because I don't want to diminish the infinite potential that lies within.
Thank you, Mr. Abrams, and I appreciate your attendance in today's proceedings. It is now time to move on to the cross-examination.
The mystery box thing is kind of like what
phase. We will
JJ
keep
does
it
in like
brief.
all his properties.
Mr. Cobra
he
went a
creates.
little long on
There's
the,
always
on
some
the
type
prosecution,
of
but I
writing
think it
leading
presented
to
very compelling
a
evidence.
mystery box thing. of
Who
some
would like
sort.
to lead the defense?
That
You
and
have
the lens
questions for your
flares.
cross-examination before we prep your defense.
I have a few questions for Mr. Cobra, if that's okay with my colleagues.
Here we go, Gordo.
Proceed. Proceed.
Okay, Mr. Cobra, just going through your statements here, I'm just trying to make sense of it. I'm hearing a lot of emotion in your voice. It sounds like a lot of these statements are coming from a place of hurt. Is that fair enough to say?
I hurt for all Star Wars fans, yes.
You hurt for all Star Wars fans. Okay, well, let's go through the series of events again. I just want to make sure that I've got the details correct. So it was us at Disney who came to George Lucas for the sale, correct?
Yes, according to George Lucas himself, yes.
Okay, and you've presented yourself as an expert on George Lucas and his doings. So why did he sell to us?
Well, he said in the statement, and I know we were running short on time, but somewhere in those videos, he did talk about, and I'm pretty sure it was in the video I played, talked about being 70 years old and just being really too old to want to complete the next phase of the trilogy. But he, the creator, wanted to see them live on with future generations. And so he had an outline for 7, 8, and 9 that he gave to Disney with the belief that they would also take that outline and continue on his vision. And unfortunately, that did not happen. But that was directly from George Lucas himself. The reason he wanted to sell was because it was going to take him about 10 years to make the entire trilogy. He didn't know if he would be here for another 10 years at his age, which is a respectable answer. And he had things that he wanted to focus in on his family. So his faith was to turn it over to Disney because they told him that they were going to continue on his vision, as Kennedy sat right there across from him and said. And unfortunately, that did not happen.
Okay, so he, feeling his age, wanted to see his story carry on. He handed the reins over to someone else to continue the story. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so he also went on to say that he gave quite a detailed analogy about a breakup and about how after the breakup, there's certain things that you don't do. And so on one hand,
I'm almost out of
it
iced
seems
coffee.
like you're saying he was there, he's alive, they could have consulted him, but by his own words, he's saying, don't talk to me, and I have to tell myself not to talk to them because I've handed the reins over, they're telling the story. So which is it then?
Well, what is it is that they decided to throw his outlines away. That was at the moment where he realized, I have no power in this situation. contractually. I have no power. So the best decision for me is to separate myself, because they have already refused to carry on my vision, because he, as a average person, it's not like he had any power anymore. So once they went back on their word to throw his scripts away, he had to make the active decision to go, I have to detach myself now because they have already hurt me enough. So as a hurt individual who was lied to and betrayed, as Bob Iger himself said, George said, I need to step away and just detach myself because there's nothing I can do anymore. I'm too
He
hurt
didn't have
by
any power
this.
anyway
It's a very
anymore.
tragic situation, and I think most people can
He sold all his
connect
rights
with that and
to-
relate
to
to that in
Disney.
some capacity, and we all feel for George Lucas.
Yeah, because hurt people hurt people.
Excuse me?
Hurt people hurt people.
Well, no, George Lucas was a hurt man, and he made the active decision to detach himself to not hurt the situation anymore because he didn't care about himself. He cared about Star Wars enough to say, I'm only going to make things significantly worse by making this a big PR battle. That's not going to be good for fans. It's not going to be good for anything. So I just need to step away and just let them carry out their vision how they want, because me getting further involved and trying to fight them is not going to help anybody. And so he made the active decision to detach. And
And
we
it's
all
not like
commend
they
him
were
for that.
asking for his help
He made
anyway.
the decision to detach. So for today's court, there were a few people who were supposed to be part of the proceedings today, but then they couldn't make it. So are they liars for not being here?
Yes. I'm pissed for it.
Okay, so you're pissed for not coming today. So Disney had
Dr. Gordo, let me just say, that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant.
Thank
Yeah, I was gonna say, why was
it's
that even a
irrelevant
question?
that Mr. Mindset, Legal Mindset isn't here. Anna was ill. Mr. Ng is traveling. I think Mr. Cobra's here. He's made his case. Please actually address the arguments
Thank
that
you, Your
Mr.
Honor.
Cobra made. That you can't.
Yes, Your Honor.
No more of these weasel words about the count. You've got to address the argument that Mr. Cobra made. Attack that, if you will, and you will have an opportunity to make your case, of course. And of course, Mr. Cobra will have an opportunity to cross-examine. But I want you to focus on what is being said here in court. No more weasel
Your
words about
Honor.
the way that the. Excuse me, Dr. Gordo. No more weasel words about the way that the count is worded. I want you to address the substance of the argument
Jeremy's
and the
smiling
count
about
as
this
written
'cause-
in the complaint. Thank you.
Your Honor, the prosecution's playing both sides. On one hand, he's saying Disney, here at Disney, we had an obligation to fulfill George's vision. But then once things got going, we decided to go in a different direction. So we made a vow to follow George Lucas's
Weasel
vision
words, yeah.
when we purchased this property from him. It was within our rights as a studio to tell the story that we wanted to tell. And if you want to talk weasel
Gordo
words,
is kinda
you
like
got
using
George
double
Lucas
speak
here
today for
basically
some
saying,
reason.
"Oh yeah, I
it
trusted
feels like
them, and I decided I didn't want to be part of it, but then when I saw what they did, oh, they're white slavers." Your Honor, these are weasel words by George Lucas, and the prosecution is simply trying to steer the emotions of the jury. What were we supposed to do?
Dr.
Give the
Gordo,
jurors
let me
our-
remind you. Dr. Gordo, let me remind you. This case is not for me. You're not debating with me. I am not the person that will decide this case. It
I'll
is the
say,
jury.
what's he
Be
doing?
more
He's
than
not even talking to the
1,100
prosecution now.
people
He's arguing with the judge.
in the jury currently watching. And I might remind the jury to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you've not subscribed.
Yeah, what he
But
said.
back to the case at hand, because there are those.
Your
there
Honor,
are those- yes.
Your
Mr. Cobra.
Your Honor, first of all, I would just like to apologize to the jury just for the fact that the defense is being very disrespectful to them and not keeping them in mind. And I would just like to apologize to them. You've already been through enough. And again, the prosecution, had to show a lot of deeply disturbing images and bring back a lot of memories. So I do apologize for the defense being so disrespectful to all of you. But the defense, continue on, please.
Point of order, Your
Would
Honor.
you like me to answer for any other YouTubers out there today and what they're doing, or will we talk about Star Wars and what Disney
Point of
did?
order, Your Honor. If it please the court, the defense would like to cross-examine the prosecution on this very point that they just made.
Mr. Alex, yes, you may cross-examine.
Thank you, Mr. Cobra, for your passionate passionate.
He sounds like a
expression
lawyer. I don't know
of
if he
all of
is
your
or not.
pain and trauma, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the very fact that the prosecution has appealed so often in their arguments to your passion and pain and suffering at the hands of our clients, Disney and Lucasfilm, we have absolutely no choice but to inquire, Mr. Cobra, do you happen to have a degree in psychology?
No.
Were you happen to have in the past been employed by the CIA?
No.
FBI?
No.
Any clandestine organization of intelligence?
It could be just
agency
your
or
current
such forth?
condition, parent.
No, sir.
Because you seem to be
Mr. Cobra,
at times
your
running really
line
cold.
of
Now you're running
argumentation
really hot.
Smacks
So, I don't know.
of a perfect modus operandi of a black ops agent using emotional trauma to coerce and manipulate. And Your Honor, if it pleases the court, this line of argumentation
You need something cold to
borders
drink. Cool you down a little
on
bit.
inappropriateness where
There's enough
the
opportunities
honorable,
for Potato Kennedy
gentlemen and
to
women of
give
the
you a
jury are
chance to sip.
concerned. We are not here to coerce and manipulate the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. We are here to make factual.
Let me interrupt you there.
Based arguments, Your
Well,
Honor.
and it could also be.
Let me interrupt you
If
there.
it works that way, it
not
could
the
also be the other way too.
psychological,
So, yeah.
emotional pantomime,
knows?
which the honorable
Mr. Alex, I'm going to have to mute your microphone. I'm telling you now, appealing to emotion. Have you ever watched a court case? TV, fake court case, or otherwise real court case? It's all about appealing to emotion.
Exactly.
This is how these get decided. And my advice to you is
Juries don't always just
that if you're
decide
going
on
to
the
win
facts.
this case today, that you start appealing to the emotions of the jury. No need to cow to me or to my favor. That's fine. Okay, I'll be fine. The jury is who you need to be paying attention to. So please, attacking our prosecutor
cool,
for
that
appealing
helps
to
some.
emotion, you would do well to appeal to emotion.
I'd say crank it down then, baby, if you're hot.
Urge you to please. I would urge you. Just a moment, Dr. Gordo. I would urge you, take your time now because it's very brief. We're going to have to go on break. We have some comments from the jury that we need to get to. They call them super chats.
Yeah, we'll skip that
We will
part.
get to those, but I would stick to the crux of Mr. Cobra's argument.
Well, I think
Have the argument, not the man.
Well, I mean, Honorable Judge Gore, thank you. Doing a fantastic job at kind of keeping things in check. And I would just like to say, that is the kind of the point. Shouldn't they be going after my argument and not the jury or the emotional stability of what I'm saying?
That's where I step
you would
in
think
there.
you would think that they would actually come after the argument that I'm making, and I'm open.
The argument is based upon fallacious reasoning. We have every right to go after that reasoning.
It's fine. Let's talk about his argument real quick. You said that there were old, depressed, angry shells in your rambling there.
Yes.
Explain that. Elaborate. Because you did a whole lot of hearsay where we didn't hear anything from you, how you felt about it. You just said, play the clip, play the clip, play the clip. Tell me, why were they old, depressed, angry shells?
Well,
Give me an example.
If you go into episode 7, as I stated with the writer Michael Arndt, his entire first screenplay was around Luke Skywalker being the focus. J.J. Abrams came in,
I get that.
fired that man, and we only get to see
I just wanted
Luke
to hear both
Skywalker
sides
at the end,
with
the
this,
very end
regardless
of
of how
The
I'm
Force
gonna
Awakens,
decide the end.
leaving fans
That's why I
hanging for
wanted to
2
watch
years
this.
just
I
to
wanted to
speculate
see
what's
both
going to
sides
happen
of the
with
argument.
Luke. This is going to be the most amazing thing ever. Rey's handing him the lightsaber. Speculation, playing on emotions, something you're saying is a bad thing, yet Disney and Lucasfilm played on our emotions for years and made us speculate for years. And then only to go into episode 8 after 2 years of speculation, of hype and anticipation for Luke Skywalker to grab that beloved lightsaber and toss it over his shoulder as an angry shell of what he used to be. And some of us looked at that and said, okay, they're just building up to the hero's journey again, which isn't necessarily what you needed to do with Luke Skywalker at that point in time in his life. But hey, we're going with it. Let's see what they do with Luke. We're going to get Luke at some point here. We never got Luke Skywalker. He was an old, angry man on a planet, and he ran away from all of his responsibility. And he was a pathetic shell of himself. Han Solo literally was the same person that he was in the OT. He never evolved. He never became anything. He was just an old, cranky version of what he always was. There was no evolution. He was the divorced father that had no connection to his son. That is not a hero. That's not who we wanted Han Solo to be. And then, of course, we see what they did with Princess Leia, and we all know if Carrie Fisher were here, she would have absolutely given Lucasfilm holy hell in the public. Rest her soul. And shout out to Carrie Smith.
Can you elaborate? You said we all know. Just treat me like I'm an idiot. We all know what Carrie Fisher.
That's not very hard. But anyway, what I could do is pull up any videos from Carrie Fisher.
I don't want you to pull anything up. I want you to tell me. Just stop double speaking. Tell me.
Again, what did you just ask me?
You said we all know what they did wrong with Carrie Fisher. I want you to tell me, what did they do wrong with Carrie Fisher, with Princess Leia?
Have you seen episode 8, sir?
Yes, I have.
Then you need me to tell. Wait, hang on.
Articulate.
You need me to tell you what they did wrong in episode 8.
Yes, that's the whole reason we're here. It is to articulate. Or you can just say, hey, guys, I know I'm right. Yep, I'm right. Talk. Use big boy words.
Okay, so did you see her flying through space like Mary Poppins? Did that seem very Star Wars-like to you?
Thank you. That's all I was asking. I wanted specific.
I'm asking you a question. You answer my question now. Did you think that was acceptable?
Sure.
You thought that was acceptable.
I'll get to that in my defense.
And you think that's going to help examination? We're focusing on Princess Leia flying through space as Mary Poppins.
Focusing on your arguments. Focusing on your arguments.
Okay, and I want to reiterate one more time for ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I just wonder this: if you hate it so much,
Defense
why watch
Sam,
it?
You
or pay
think
it
that Carrie
and take it
Fisher
at all?
flying through space like Mary Poppins is acceptable?
It was more like Superman, but yes, and I'll get to that and I'll explain it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We appreciate that.
Moving on, let's say you wanted Luke to be the focus. So
I think what it boils down to is fans love. We all love what we love.
The original screenwriter wanted Luke to be the focus, and J.J. Abrams, who is here today, decided to fire that writer because, in quote from Michael Arndt
not
himself,
just Star Wars, but all these
Skywalker
beloved
took
IPs
too much
out
attention away from
when
the,
things don't go the way
new characters. What
you
is today's
expected them
count?
to, or you
What
feel
is today's
left
count?
down. That's
Defense.
kind of what
Why don't
happened.
you repeat that for me real quick? What is today's count?
The count is negligent misuse of legacy characters.
Thank you. Is Luke Skywalker a legacy character?
Yes, he's a legacy character.
Okay.
But I just wanted to nail down what you said.
Did Michael Arndt
welcome,
get fired
Willie.
for focusing too much on the legacy
Thanks
character?
for the comments. Appreciate
According
it.
to what you presented, yeah.
No. According to the article I shared, which is a quote which has been verified and is a fact, Mr. Abrams is here today. Did you make the decision to fire Michael Arndt for using Luke Skywalker too much, that took too much attention away from Rey?
And you always need to be able to respond to the unexpected, and the unexpected can come in all sorts of forms.
That's not
Thank you,
answering
JJ.
the
Once
question.
again, a non-answer.
Yep, just like you, D-Day Coder. We're good at non-answers. All right, let's move on to the next
D-Day
one.
Cobra, not Coda. You're getting a little nervous. You got to settle down, defense. It's 1 versus 3. You guys should not be squirming out of control. I'm a one man who clearly doesn't have any education whatsoever, as your question has said, yet I am annihilating you. Calm down. Say your words clearly, and it'll be okay.
Hey, if I may help, having a plan, I have learned in some cases the hard way, is the most critical thing, because otherwise you don't know what you're setting up. You don't know what to emphasize. You don't know how to argue. So yeah.
Judge, I feel dumber every time he talks.
Well, I have to say, we have gone on long for the prosecution case. We've had plenty of time for cross-examination here. We're now getting into with
How
the
long
debating
is
back
this
and forth.
episode
It
anyway?
sounds like open debate. We're going to have to move on. And
3.5 hours.
what I'd like to do now is, I have a couple questions for Mr. Cobra. One, there are people mentioning your hat. Why is your hat so significant?
Being a man of no education, as the defense is been so focused on, I'm not sure why that was a topic of discussion, but I've been blessed with having a wonderful following on YouTube, and it all started with talking about The Last Jedi and how Disney mistreated not only the legacy characters, but also the fans. And this hat was something that I wore consistently through the time that my channel went from pretty much nothing to what it is today. A few years ago, I retired the hat because I stopped being a supporter of Disney Star Wars. I just can't really watch it anymore or focus in on it. But I felt today with the Honorable Judge Gore and the wonderful, men and women of the jury, I felt it was time to bring the Star Wars
This
hat
is the
back
Iron
to
Age,
kind of
man.
reignite a little bit of
Maybe
that
you oughta
passion
make
that I
something.
once had, but have obviously lost in the last
You
few
got a
years
story
due
to
to Disney
tell,
Star Wars.
right?
One last thing.
You could even get it self-published.
What is 199? This is the chat is filled with people saying 199.
Yes, so 199
I know what
represents the
that
Geeks
is.
and Gamers community. It basically is just a way to let people know that you stand with truth, justice, and the American way.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Cobra, for your impassioned speech, and thank you, Defense, for your questions. We're now going to look at some supers. Here's super chat, which is basically the jury talking to us. So let's go to those. And thank you all.
Okay,
Here we
let's
go.
skip the super chat
We have
section.
new members of the channel. Green-haired anti-liberal.
And we're going to go to the recess part here.
Thank you.
If I feel like Star Wars is
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take about a good 2 or 3 minute break. I need to go to the little penguins room, and because I've been drinking a lot of iced coffee, because, boy, they said a lot of potato Kennedy today. Anyway, so I'm going to take about a 2 or 3 minute break, and I'll be back, and we'll pick up from where we left off. Okay, so hang tight, and hope if you need to get up, stretch, or slap a neighbor with a fish, or go refresh your drink, or go to the bathroom like I got to, take this opportunity to do so. I'll be back in about 2 or 3 minutes, okay? Okay, I'm back, campers, and we'll continue watching on. And I got a little bit of commercials here they normally play. We're gonna watch those, and hopefully the court thing will continue on. I got my iced coffee topped off. Didn't know I was gonna be drinking that much today. They said potato candy quite a bit. I tell you, Tracy, your drinking game idea, good, but also made me have to go to the little penguin's room.
Love and clothes make the man toxic. Yes, yes. Just because you're a stormtrooper in the Empire doesn't mean you can't look fabulous.
Accessorize.
The first order of business must be uniform. And uniform doesn't mean it all needs to look the same. Accessorize. Long live the matriarchy.
That's just weird.
Oh,
look at this.
Yes, crunchy food.
C-3POs.
New Kellogg's C-3POs. Twin rings phase together for a crunchy new force at breakfast.
Yeah, the force is with
I remember those, but I don't remember if I ever ate
part of this nutritious breakfast. Okay.
As a toy seller, Star Wars is unequaled.
I have about 20, 25, you know.
Which ones?
You know, the main characters like Chewbacca, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, all of those, you know.
How many of the Star Wars characters do you have at home?
About 10.
About 10. How about you? Do you have them too?
I have 3. I don't have none, really.
You don't have any yet?
I'm planning to get some.
You are? Which ones you want?
All of them.
Star Wars toys have been the top sellers in boys' action toys for 6 years straight.
Some of the toys are action toys. If your child gets one, you may have to take it away with force.
Don't move.
I beg your pardon?
Don't move.
Don't move. You're going to hit me with the...
I cut your hand off.
Children are buying the toys, of course, but so are older investors. You're buying Star Wars toys.
Right. A couple of years, they'll be
Adults,
worth a lot
in
of
other
dough.
words, they're toy collectors.
Like a lot of other things.
You're buying them strictly as an investment.
Yes, definitely.
Kein Problem mit nur einem Streifen Chewbacca chewing
Oh,
gum.
yeah. Saw this one I think last week. Chewbacca chewing gum.
Chewbacca chewing gum. Galactisch frisch.
The problem is that making film is an art. Selling film is a business.
Right.
The trouble is that they don't know how to sell films. As a result, they try to make you make films that people will go to without them having to be sold, which is the real key to the problem. And if they weren't so backward and, you know, I mean, they just, if they can't put a film in a theater and have people rush to the door, they're not interested.
When I took over the licensing, I simply said, I'm going to be able to make T-shirts, I'm going to be able to make posters, and I'm going to be able to sell this movie, even though the studio won't.
And we're back.
Everyone come to order. Court is now back in session. I thank you all, members of the jury. It seems most of you stuck around. It is now time for the defense to present its case. Who will be going first?
Please, the court. Thank you, Your Honor. The defense team has suggested that I take the lead this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Alex. Before you begin, Mr. Blackwood, if you might share with us some of the sketches
there we go.
you courtroom sketches
Favorite
that you've
part.
drawn today. We'd love to see your amazing work here.
What's that?
That's, of course, that is Anna, that Star Wars girl.
Yeah, she's sick.
I also see that you have Mr. Cobra here. Let's see, Mr. Cobra. On your
This
sketches.
is the reason why I watch it
There
too.
you are. There's Mr. Cobra making
Cobra
his
there.
argument. You'll be able
Like I said, he's the highlight of the court show.
See these sketches on Mr. Blackwood's website.
Dr. Gordo.
That's Dr. Gordo, it seems, right there.
Yeah, link to
you'll
his
be able to
website
go
down in
to
the description.
BlackwoodPDX.com,
I'm guessing when
or go to Instagram
Judge
at
Gore does
Blackwood
Critics
_PDX
Court for Star Trek,
for
which
these
is supposed to be the next one,
sketches,
He'll probably have
And
Mr.
more-
Blackwood
Thank
back
you,
again.
Mr. Blackwood. What is okay? I see. These are.
Well,
yes.
that's Mr. Atlas,
There you
I think.
That's Mr. Alex.
Alex.
Thank
Yeah,
you
Mr.
again.
Atlas, Alex.
Yes, this is a very.
What is that?
Yeah,
That JJ
that
is E.T.?
J.J. Abrams as E.T. I don't know what's happening here, but I see a
That's
flare,
messed up.
a lens flare off of JJ's ET-like finger. Thank you
See,
for
anything can come from a mystery box. You never know.
You never know.
Again,
Yes,
JJ.
there is Mr. Abrams looking like I don't know, a vampire. It looks like.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Blah, blah,
yeah. The Count. Blah, blah, blah. Thank you for that, Mr. Blackwood.
So
we now
messed
continue
up.
on. It is now time for the
Good.
defense
So
to
good.
present Mr. Alex.
Love it.
You have the floor. Thank you, sir. Present
All
your
right.
case. And remember, you also have Mr. Abrams as a expert witness. And then, Mr. Cobra, you'll have an opportunity to
Now we get to hear from the defense.
Please continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
You're a little low. Excuse me if I might interrupt. You're a little low. If you could boost your audio there.
Yeah, I'd say you
for a
wasn't low
moment.
before.
We're having trouble hearing you. So you might want to move your mic closer to.
is this better, Your Honor?
Much better. Thank you.
That's
Thank you,
where you
Mr.
was
Alex.
before.
Please
All right.
continue.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defense has a very simple evidence-based argument to make, as opposed to the honorable prosecution, which felt it necessary to try to capitalize on your identification and your suffering. We will make our case on the facts. And the fact is that Star Wars is first and foremost high mythology. And so, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, your task this afternoon on count 7, on the misuse and abuse of the legacy characters, you must ask yourself a simple question on this count. Do the characters of a mythology serve you and your desire for pleasure and entertainment? Or do the characters of a mythology serve the mythos, the mythology that is being told? This is the question that we have to ask in order to determine, were these characters abused? Now, we're going to share our screen here, if
Interesting.
that is all right, if it please the court.
Yes, please. If you have an issue, can you let us know? But if you could share screen.
Yeah,
Here.
we've shared it here. So before you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. The original trilogy represents a hero's journey of the myth of Star Wars itself, beginning with The New Hope, the descent into the dark side with Empire Strikes Back, and of course, the return and the redemption of Anakin Skywalker in The Return of the Jedi. This is
You mean
this is
Luke
factual. This
Skywalker.
is not open to dispute. Even our friend Mr. Cobra on the honorable prosecution would agree.
Not Anakin.
Perhaps a little bit more
Anakin did
contentious
get a redemption
is
arc.
that in the prequels, the mythology expanded to a meta myth about myth makers themselves. It is a hero's journey about the man, Lucas, the myth maker himself, the messenger. Because we began with episode 1, which was a new hope for fans, but it quickly descended to the dark side with Attack of the Clones, and already was slipping that way with midichlorians and Jar Jar, not Abrams, but Binks. But finally, in that prequel
just
trilogy,
called
we
J.J.
saw a
Abrams Jar
redemption,
Jar.
a return, and a rise when Lucas, the myth maker, redeemed himself in the eyes of the fandom menace by finally giving the fans the story which they were expecting, which was the fall of Anakin to the dark side. And of course, that was the Revenge of the Sith. So here we have two heroes' journeys. One, the pure myth of the OG characters. That's where they belonged in the original trilogy films. And the prequel trilogy, which introduced new characters and was telling the story about the myth maker himself. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we present to you the complete trilogy of trilogies, the complete 9-film Skywalker saga, where our clients, the defendants, their responsibility was to present you, the fandom, a meta-mythology about the hero's journey of the meaning of a myth itself, where Force Awakens was presented as a new hope, and then clearly everything took a descent to the dark side with The Last Jedi. But then there was a redemption. There was a rise in the third film of the Disney trilogy, The Rise of Skywalker. That fans didn't see it and didn't appreciate it doesn't mean that it is not there. And we can attest, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that it is there. That Rise of Skywalker, in fact, plugs many gaps in the mythology left by Lucas himself. Gaps which Lucas knew he was not the man to fill, which is why he had to pass on Star Wars to a new generation, to another generation of filmmakers, which, as it turns out, included J.J. Abrams, who is here in the courtroom tonight, Rian Johnson, all of whom were useful idiots in the eyes of the Force itself. Yes, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the cosmic force, the actual source of Star Wars and all high mythologies, the objective universal truth which all mythology serves, and, by extension, all characters playing out in those mythologies must serve. And to illustrate that point of just how much is Star Wars a mythology / religion, let us observe that all mythologies, all religions are born of genuine inspiration from that source of universal truth that we just mentioned. Call it the cosmic force. And it is delivered by a messenger. That religion, that mythology, gets crystallized or canonized. And in the case of Star Wars, it's the original series and the prequels, and of course the extended universe. In the case of Christianity, it was the Nag Hammadi scrolls and the Gnostic Gospels. Now, at every point in every mythology or religion's history, the law of entropy begins to take hold. And one of the facets of the law of entropy is that the religion or mythology becomes appropriated by some empire. In the case of Christianity, that appropriation was by Constantine and the Roman Empire. In the case of Star Wars, it was an appropriation by the Disney Empire. And what was the first act of that empire? It redacted most of the extended universe, just as Emperor Constantine and Rome redacted all of the Gnostic Gospels and kept only the 4 that remain today. The next step in this entropic process is the process of.
Okay, he's got a flaw in his argument. First off, because the Gnostic Gospels were not thrown out by the Roman Empire; they were thrown out by the church of the time, based on criteria not meeting the same thing as the synoptic gospels, the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Gnostic Gospels were not included because of the way that they rang the truth in them, actually or lack thereof. They had contradictions, even when you went back to the original Greek, and sometimes the Aramaic as well. Anyway, I didn't mean to get into all this, but nevertheless, his argument is not correct. He's saying here that the Roman Empire is the one that threw that out. Just like he's trying to draw some analogy to the Empire in Star Wars. It's not the same analogy. He's got a flawed argument in the first place.
Politicization. That was the Council of Nicaea under Constantine, and under Disney and Lucasfilm, it was the Last Jedi. This is when Star Wars as a mythology became politicized. And we don't believe that this is up for dispute, with any of the fans or yourselves, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, here today.
Don't get me
And
going
that
on the Council of
politicization
Nicaea.
was focused on
They were
the
not solely
self-interest of
responsible
course,
for
the
all
emperor,
that.
Emperor Constantine. And it in Christianity, they introduced a whole bunch of new concepts and dogmas and beliefs into the religion. And to add insult to injury, that process of politicization ended up in the persecution and torture, the burning of the stake of the Gnostics themselves, the Gnostic Christians that the empire appropriated the religion from. Similarly, we have the self-interested character of Luke as presented in the politicization of The Last Jedi. We have new concepts and new ideas introduced,
I am not liking
like the
his
Holdo
argument
maneuver.
here. It's not valid.
And we have the persecution of the original
taking a
mythology
lot
of
of
the
things
burning
out
of the
of
Jedi
context.
texts, the burning of the Tree of Life, and of course Disney and Lucas attacking the fans. And this is not in dispute. This is all objective fact. You see, we are presenting you with the facts, the evidence, which what usually happens in a court of law. That politicization leads to a schism in the fandom, a schism in the faithful, and a splintering and a divide. Divide and conquer is, after all, the modus operandi of the Sith and the Black Lodge, the forces of evil.
Objection, Your Honor. What the hell does this have to do with anything of the charges? What are we talking about right now?
Mr. Cobra, you will have an opportunity to cross-examine.
Okay.
I'm gonna allow the presentation to continue. but,
Okay.
Your objection is noted. Your objection is noted.
The point is how we perceive Disney Star Wars and the treatment of the characters depends entirely on our ability to perceive the mythology and the greater meta myth which is being told, which is being shown to us, which is coming from a place much higher than a place of entertainment. We must hearken back to Maximus as he throws his sword into the crowd and asks them, "Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?" And he spits in the dirt. Why? Because Maximus serves a higher power. He serves the true emperor of Rome. He serves the Rome which is the light, not this backwater blood sport entertainment which the mob wants. Are we to be true believers in Star Wars? Like, for example, ask a Christian, where would your religion be if Jesus wasn't crucified? Was that not an abuse and a misuse of a character? The actual crucifixion of Christ? But where would Christianity be had he not been crucified? Had not the phrase, the passion of the Christ, even existed? It is that passion, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that you feel in your hearts. It is that burning passion of fire which fuels your love for these characters.
Okay, I have to say something here. He's looking at this from a man perspective. He's using the word religion. I am a follower of Christ. I consider myself to be a Christian penguin. But I do not like the term religion because I've always seen religion is man's attempt to get to God, and a relationship. I have a relationship with a living God who's not dead. And that God started that relationship with me, with all of us. I don't have religion. I have a relationship. He's looking at it from a worldly, secular viewpoint of this. And that's where his argument has gone off the rails because he's not looking at the way God sees things with this. He's totally missed the reason why Christ died in the first place. Christ didn't die because it was some atrocity or some act against him. Yes, the church of that day and the politicians that day didn't like what he was saying, so they ultimately pushed to get him crucified. But Christ died for our sins. He died so that we all have a chance to live. Because we all are eternal beings. We all have eternal life. But where we spend eternity is solely based on one simple thing only. Whether or not you have accepted what Jesus Christ did on the cross, the shedding of his blood to eradicate your sins and be forgiven of your sins. That is not a man thing, that is a God thing. And he's referring to this as a man thing, as a looking at it from a political standpoint or what actually happened. Yes, but there was more to it. He's missed the motive behind the actions. Christ came down and wrapped himself in human flesh 2,000 years ago so that he could ultimately die on a cross for us. Why? Because he loved us before we even loved him. He's missing the point here. And to be honest with you, I'm totally surprised at the direction that this court went into. I was not expecting this at all. And if what I am saying when you watch this video later, or if you're sitting there lurking and listening to what I'm saying, I hope this is not meant to be offensive to you. Instead, it's meant to show you that we have a loving God that cares about us and wants a relationship with us, not to give us some man-made religion of rules and guidelines and so forth, but instead to live a life that's pleasing to God and what he wants us to do. He died for us to show us his love. And I'd love to give the opportunity at this point. If you feel the need after seeing this, that you need to talk to somebody about that same love that Christ showed on the cross, I encourage you to reach out to me. Either send me an email, which is on my YouTube channel, or leave a comment in this video, or contact me via Twitter. I would love to talk to you about the love of Jesus and the Christ that I love. Anyway, let's get back to his flawed argument of this court. I cannot right now really defend what the defense is saying about all this. It really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Yeah, and you can reach out to those that are in my chat here, like Tracy. She would, I know she would has that same relationship with Jesus, and she would love to tell you about just how much he loves you. Anyway, wow, wasn't expecting that. But anyway, let's get back to the craziness that this guy's pushing forward.
Including Luke Skywalker. All Skywalkers represent the cosmic Christ, the cosmic force. This is what's being allegorized in this precious mythology of ours. And all messengers, all avatars, all representatives of that light, of that fire, all commit to a hero's journey known as the path of the Bodhisattva, the path of suffering and sacrifice for humanity.
But Jesus isn't just a messenger. He is
your
the light.
Star Wars had to undergo that
Unlike
suffering
Luke
and sacrifice as well
the light.
in order for
He
all
just
of us to be here today.
means with the Force.
For all of us to feel the fire and the passion that we do, to have that all rekindled in us, but not for the sake of entertainment, for something much greater, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. This court, let it
the
not
cosmic
simply
Christ.
be a
Like I said,
matter
his
of,
argument is flawed.
worldly desires and worldly
He's
laws
kind
of
of
men.
missed the whole
Let
point
this
of that.
court be a reflection, as above, as below, for
There
the
is
great
a way
law,
to kind
the
of
universal law, the laws
bring
of universal
Christianity
truth
similar
and
to
justice and
the
beauty,
story of Star Wars,
which burns
but
in all of our
it's
hearts,
not quite the
which
same
cause people
fit
to cry
completely.
tears of joy
And
when
the-
John
definitely the
Favreau
direction he
put
went with it is
Luke,
not even
put
close.
Luke on the screen at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. This is the passion. This is the fire at the heart and soul of Star Wars, and indeed all high mythology. And so when we ask the question,
you notice what he just said there?
those,
He just claimed
were
that
those
Christianity's
characters
high mythology.
abused
It's
and
not
misused?
a mythos. It's a belief
Every
system.
hero's journey must go to its dark side in the second chapter. Every hero's journey must have its dark side, and so did
Caps the size of the
Disney
Grand
Star
Canyon?
Wars
Yeah.
sequel trilogy. I now pass the floor to my defense partners.
Thank you, Mr. Alex, for your presentation. Mr. Sam, you wanted to go next. Please proceed. And you don't need me to share the screen anymore. I'll remove that.
Have you
yes,
share mine?
Sam, go ahead, Mr. Sam.
Yeah, I'll just have you share mine, and I'm going to go as fast as I can, Your Honor. So basically, what we're talking about here, and I'm going to cut most of the fluff, and just let's try to get back on track.
Yes, please.
So count seven. Negligent misuse of legacy characters, right?
Equating Christianity with mythology, so disappointing, but not
Talking about the big three.
Yeah.
Going to talk about
That's why
Han,
I said it was a
Leia,
secular
and Luke.
viewpoint.
First off, Han Solo. Harrison Ford wanted to die in Episode 4. He never wanted to be a part of the Star Wars franchise long term. And so, do you really think that the spineless J.J. Abrams is going to tell an A-list actor, Harrison Ford, no? J.J., would you do that? Do you have a spine? Do you have a backbone to stand up to Harrison Ford? I mean, you make good movies, but I don't think you have a backbone. J.J., are you there? Is he in the call? No? Moving on. All right. Then we go.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that I was being spoken to. I thought this was your speech. What was
You're fine. You wasted enough of our time with 2 movies. Han Solo is
Well,
always reckless.
there
Look at
you
that
go.
bridge. That is the death bridge. Come on. You do not go out and walk across that and just be like, oh, it is. It's going to be fine. The only thing Disney changed was they took away Han Solo's plot armor. All right, let's talk about losing the Millennium Falcon. Everyone's like, oh, he didn't have a Millennium Falcon. How is that even possible? Well, I don't know. Gee, it got stolen. It's almost like if you have a really nice classic car, like, I don't know, maybe something like a Z car, and then you decide to sell it. It's almost like life happens. Life changes. That's amazing. It's incredible. Isn't that right there, D-Day Code?
Wait a minute, though. Wait a minute. There's a problem with him arguing about the Falcon here. The Falcon is technically a YT-1300. I think that's the class of the ship. I think it's YT-1300 or 2600. I always forget which number it is. Nevertheless, the way it normally looks when Lando had it, it was all tricked out and everything. And Han purposely went out of his way to make it look kind of junky on the outside and almost falling apart so that he could kind of fly under the radar. Nobody would actually see him being worth a whole lot flying that. It was actually meant to be the way it looks for that reason. Anyway.
Over. Don't answer. I don't care. Moving on.
I have a better
Leia.
car now.
That's fine. Like I said, don't answer. I didn't interrupt you. Moving on. We got Leia, a.k.a. Mary Poppins, y'all. So, quick side note on this one. Excuse me. Eddie Hall. He's the beast. This man lifted 1 ton. Do you know how he lifted a ton? Because he went to a psychiatrist and got his brain to switch into the fight or flight mode, the life or death situations. I could go on long, but I get short on time. Basically, he said that he went to a dark place in his head, and he didn't say exactly what that place was, but he said, I'm not lifting the weight in my mind. In my mind, I'm pulling someone off my son.
Yeah, Han wouldn't sell the Falcon.
This is just like when women lift cars off their babies, right? They have these incredible feats of strength. We know that Leia, as a Skywalker,
you're about ready to invoke my fight
her by her
like
genes
spots,
because the Skywalker family
and I'm a
is super
flightless
force
bird,
powerful,
so do the math.
It was lying dormant. They were there. And then in this insane act where she's blown out into space, she is living for her son. She is living for her son. If you could please mute your microphone, I'd be very respectful. I'm trying to be nice.
Objection, Your Honor. What does this have to do with mystery boxes?
Like I said, Abrams, you wasted our time enough. Thank you. So these are all plausible reasons why these things could have happened. All right. Now let's move on to Luke Skywalker, the big one. Right. The apple does not fall far from the tree. What the Disney was doing with Luke Skywalker is they were repeating the same steps that we saw with Anakin Skywalker. All right. This comes from Psychology Today and Mellow Magazine. I'm going to read the bottom one. It says, almost all children sound and act like their parents at some point in time in some way. Both biological and social interactions can lead you to pick up on some of your parents' characteristics in the way of interacting with the world. It's biological. It's baked into your genes. Just like with the midichlorian count and they're force sensitive, they have that baked in. It's
Penguins
just like
don't wear
with,
jeans.
People that have addictive personalities, it is the brain chemistry is different. You can't just tell them put down the cigarette because their brain works differently. Basically, they're the same dude. Main character of the trilogy. Did one last good act before they die. Strong with the Force. Strong with the Force. Let's talk about that. The closer you get to the stronger you get in the Force, it's like a light. The closer you get to the light, the greater your shadow becomes. The stronger you are in the Force, the more the dark side can pull at you. The more the dark side can tempt you. And we know that the Skywalkers...
Luke did not get to grow up with his
tempted,
father.
All right? We know that from Anakin. Plus, killing younglings, it's the Skywalker's favorite pastime. All right? Look at these pictures. It's the exact same thing. All right? Now, would he leave to become a hermit? After he caught himself, because Anakin obviously killed the kids, Luke caught himself, he was so ashamed. The actual quote is, look at my notes. Yes, shame. It passed like a fleeting shadow, and I was left with utter shame. So, in this shame, he left. He had to do it. Now, the defense would like to call heel versus babyface to the stand, but since he blocked me and doesn't respond to my love letters, instead we're going to play a video.
And it was hard. You know, it was a hard decision because she got a nice rack.
And the woman that they actually had playing the girl that was getting married.
What's this have to do with Star
she's
Wars?
actually trans. And I don't know if people knew that.
I just thought she was ugly.
Yeah, that's
Well,
a dude.
I thought she had a nice
I don't
rack.
understand.
Hey, the one scene when
Got you.
wait,
A trap.
so when
A trap.
it's a trap. When the two
Is it just
women
me,
started
or
arguing
is
and he
this
jumped
week
out of
the
the window,
defense
that was
doesn't
the
seem
only
to know
scene
what
I
they're
could
talking
identify
about?
with.
It kind of like
identified with that
not been on
so
point the
much.
whole time. I don't
So
understand.
I think there's something with the villain to be an incel, and it's probably one of the dudes she dated.
Afterward. Get back to what you were trying to
shame.
point to make.
In this great shame, you want to curl up into a box. You want to self-isolate, just like Luke Skywalker did.
I agree. In other weeks, the defense has actually had real logical, laid out, fact-based evidence. It seems like this week they're just like pulling it out of their left sock or something. I'm not sure what they're doing. Yeah, that did happen too. One week they were, see, even then that week they had their facts right, but they were just so good that they wound up helping the prosecution. But I don't understand what's happening this week. I mean, they seem to have evidence, but it's not about the actual thing we're talking about. In some cases, it's not even really evidence. I don't understand what's happening here. I'm kind of confused where this guy's going with this.
Self-isolated. He went to a isolated planet on an isolated island. And when we're left alone in our isolation, we change. We learned this from Castaway.
That very well
evolve.
could be the
Without your
case.
social
They don't
skills,
really
without
have
that,
a
and also
clue
being
what
cut
they're
off
really
from the Force
talking
like
about.
He was because he was scared of himself. He devolved into what he was. So, all this to say that is the story what we wanted? No, obviously not. But to say that they misused the characters, that's just a blatant falsehood. All these things could have been looked at and objectively took a step back and say, okay, where could this have gone? Yes, Han Solo, grumpy old Han Solo. We agree. We got it. Leia, hey, Luke's pretty strong in the Force. Maybe she could too. And Luke Skywalker, hey, let's have him repeat Anakin's failure. That way, when the circle comes around, it's just like Star Wars. We're getting back to the basics. And with that, I turn whatever time is left over to Dr. Gordo.
Thank you, Mr. Sam, for compelling evidence. But it's not up to me. It's up to the jury. We are short on time. Dr. Gordo, 2 minutes, and we will move on to cross-examination by Mr. Cobra.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick sip of Kool-Aid. That's good, dizzy Kool-Aid. So, let's talk about legacy characters
indicating
from our own
he's
timeline.
drank the Kool-Aid.
The so-called great man theory. Let's take a look at some deaths that we're familiar with. Martin Luther King Jr. tragically gunned down the second floor of a motel. What we don't tend to talk about is the fact that the last year of his life, he was rather a social pariah. He had spoken out against the war in Vietnam. He had domestic troubles, and he was a greatly flawed man who did great things. Likewise, Abraham Lincoln. At the time of his assassination, I think it's fair to say that half the country did not approve of him. And once again, flawed man, did some great things. and we tend to
We're
focus
all
on those great
flawed.
things. Now let's move on to someone like Che Guevara, gunned down in the jungles of Bolivia. I know there's some people in the jury is going to say, well, there wasn't enough bullets for him. Well, guess what? Executing him without a trial made him the face of socialism and actually added to that movement. Also, when it comes to the death of great ones, we also tend to mix up some details. For example, Julius Caesar, not killed on the Senate floor, was killed nearby. Elvis did not die in the toilet. Cleopatra, she didn't romantically commit suicide along with her lover. She was most likely murdered, but I'll have to see what Netflix has to say about that. What do these real-life figures have to do with the legacy characters of Star Wars? Let's take a hard look at some of these legacy characters. Luke Skywalker, in the destruction of the first Death Star, killed 1 million military personnel. Clearly, wars do not make one great. Han Solo, drug smuggler. Who's more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows him? And of course, Princess Leia, she abused her privilege to aid the rebellion and had no problem lying about her involvement with the rebellion and going about killing military personnel. We ignore all of this because, again, people are flawed. No matter how great the person is, they're going to have made some mistakes. We tend to focus on the great things that they did. When it comes to legacy characters, it's all about 4, 5, and 6. That's their story. 7, 8, 9, yes, it's about their passing in order to move on to the next part of the story, which of course George Lucas wanted, and the prosecution has already pointed this out, that the idea was to move the story along to the next person, the next storyteller, and that people are flawed. And let's be perfectly honest, jury. Is there a death for any of the legacy characters that you would have liked? I'm thinking the answer is no.
Why do you have to
we
kill them off
simply
in the
don't want to
first
see
place?
them go away because we love them so much. But there's no good ending for them. And of course, if you give them plot armor and you protect them from any risks, then that takes away from the story. So clearly here at Disney, we're in a no-win situation when it comes to this.
Yeah, because
we did our job. We moved the story
episode
along
7,
like
8,
George
9
Lucas
by
asked us to
Lucasvision
do, and
continued on
we
with
think
the story of the
everything is an
Skywalker
absolute
family.
win. Thank you.
Not Ray Palpatine.
Thank you, Dr. Gordo. Mr. Cobra, it is your opportunity to cross-examine briefly, and then we will move to open debate.
So, I mean, essentially, I think you guys are doing a fantastic job of representing Disney because your entire argument is just to blame the audience for not liking the creative vision behind it and then trying to justify it by all of these ridiculous reaches when ultimately it's a really simple method here. That Disney Star Wars is on trial because the fans widely rejected it, and you can say that there was no death that anyone would be happy with, but that's just not the case. We've seen death in films before that people thought were honorable and respectable. We are talking about the disrespect from the beginning. The reason that something like Disney Star Wars is on trial today and Cobra Kai isn't is because Cobra Kai did it the right way. And if Disney Star Wars would have done something with these legacy characters, much like a Cobra Kai, we wouldn't be here today. But my question is for the defense, have any of you seen Star Wars? That's a fair question. Have you seen Star Wars? And I don't want to get a Leslie Headland, Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant answer. I just love all Star Wars, or a Brie Larson answer. Have you seen Star Wars? And what's your favorite Star Wars movie?
I personally have not.
Who said that?
JJ.
It's me, Lenny S. Flair, aka JJ Abrams. Anybody help me get out of this mystery box?
I wasn't expecting that.
Have any of you seen Star Wars? Any of the members of the defense?
Yes.
Yes.
Episode 3 is my favorite.
Okay. That's a good answer. Anyone else on the defense? Have you seen Star Wars?
Yes, we have.
Okay. What's your favorite Star Wars movie?
Empire.
The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
Yeah, my favorite.
A close second. Rise of
5 is
Skywalker,
my
close
favorite
second.
for sure.
Why Rise of Skywalker, might I ask?
Yeah.
Well,
why Rise of Skywalker?
Well, you know,
Can I just add this? JJ, speaking for everybody, can you just not talk, please? Thank you. Okay, going to the defense now.
Yeah.
6 is a good one
Well,
too.
you know, I came out of The Last Jedi as livid and as frustrated and angry as any lover of Star Wars, any fan of Star Wars, and I went into Rise of Skywalker expecting to hate it, wanting to hate it.
What's your number one, Tracy?
I watched all the YouTube videos. I knew all the rumors and everything else, and the you know, the budget overruns and all. I completely equipped myself to go in and absolutely hate on that film from the first frame to the last. But unfortunately, symbol after symbol, allegory after allegory, the film just kept showing me one thing after another, after another, after another, and the still soft voice of my intuition, my higher self, just whispered to me, saying, "Listen, you have to."
I get
pay
it now.
attention.
You're
You
talking
have to
about
give this
the
movie
actual
just
order
look
of
what's on the
release order.
screen. Forget all that crap, because it's a trap. Forget all that fan hate and everything that you came in equipped with. Leave all that baggage at the door and see what's on the screen. And when I put myself in a meditative state and I allowed the symbols and allegories to penetrate my consciousness,
fair enough,
I realized that Rise of Skywalker was filling in all sorts of gaps left in the mythology by Lucas himself. And I just could not hate the film as much as I wanted to. It was just showing me so much timeless,
I do like
universal
Episode
symbols
3,
and allegories
Revenge of the Sith,
that are common to
mainly because
countless
it
high
also
mythologies
explains
and all the
to
world's
me,
great religions.
a
that
lot
this
what
was-
happened
this
to
was
Anakin,
the
obviously.
absolute
And I like
cherry on the
Anakin.
top. It was the pinnacle of the Skywalker saga, and
well, you've
and so
used the
you know,
term
and
high
so
mythology.
That's why I'm saying I said it,
Yeah.
next to Empire Strikes Back, it is the most esoteric and
I agree. I agree. I can
mythology.
tell how much you loved it by the fact that you mentioned literally nothing that happened in it. So you made a really compelling case. So thank you for that.
Well, you know what? I'm sorry. That the honorable prosecution. We made a 2.5 hour
Anakin guy.
video on our YouTube
Weird Al.
channel. We don't have 2.5 hours to explain it to you, so you'll have to take.
You're
our
not
word
explaining it
for
to me. You're explaining to the juries. So if you
Well,
want to
yeah, but you know
disrespecting
what?
them, that's
We
fine.
think the jury
So-
understood what we were trying to say.
Yeah, I think they did too. So you've used what is this high mythology a few times?
High
Can
mythology,
you
yes.
define as an uneducated man myself? Can you kind of tell us what high mythology means?
Well, we can give you some examples. For example, like Lord of the Rings is high
Okay.
mythology.
High mythology.
Any mythology which has embedded and into its symbols and allegories timeless universal truths, which are common to
Yeah,
all
I'm a
timeless
visual
and
You use that term. Use that term for me again.
Seeing
Timeless.
three,
What's
even
that?
though
Timeless?
what
You
I
said
had in
timeless.
my mind,
Timeless and
right?
universal, yes.
Right.
seeing it
Okay, so
just
why is
kind of made it more
Kathy
real.
in this high mythology of timeless truths? Why is she so focused on current day politics and sidelining legacy characters in order to have representation? If we're talking about a high mythology and timeless truths, why has she specifically, the CEO and president of Lucasfilm, said that we want Star Wars to look more like the real world? That is a quote from Kathy. So you said it's a high
Taylor
mythology.
Kennedy,
You said
and
it's
it is
supposed
a
to be
quote from
timeless,
her.
but Kathy said we want Star Wars to look like the real world.
Yep.
Because
I
as we
actually watched
explained
a
in
video
our,
with her
in our
saying that
opening
in an
remarks of
interview.
defense, that the meta mythology being told in the Disney sequel trilogy is the hero's journey of Star Wars itself, and someone has to be the villain. Someone has to be the one that creates the politicization, just like Constantine politicized.
Yeah, I would like you to answer the specific question that I asked you, and not a bunch of fluff and a bunch of big words. So again, why, if it's a timeless high mythology, did Kathleen say Star Wars needs to look more like the real world? Can you tell me how those two connect?
Because she's a useful idiot and she misspoke.
That's a good answer.
Well, there you go.
All right. Well, we're going to leave it at that for the. Excuse me. We're going to leave it at that for the cross
I said
examination.
because that kind of
we are now
jives. If
moving
he's saying
on
high
to
mythology
the,
and Kathleen Kennedy
open
wants it to be
debate
like real
phase.
world,
I want to remind people right now,
jive.
members of the jury, there will be a poll in the chat that will run for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Who made the best argument today? And I would ask that you please keep an open mind. Who made the best argument today? The prosecution or the defense?
Judge, I didn't
so-
get to make my argument for the day. I think I would like to add one.
Sure, Mr. Abrams.
If there's nothing that the past 10 years of movie making has taught us, or has supposed to have taught us, white
Yeah,
man,
your crazy
bad.
drinking game,
White
Tracy,
man,
caused
very
me to
bad.
have to go to the bathroom.
White man needs to sit in corner.
I'm going to have to
think
go here in a
about
little
what he's
bit again.
done by virtue of being white man. And I think we've done that.
Didn't
rather
know they
nicely
say
here
potato candy
in
so
Star
much in
Wars.
this episode.
Luke Skywalker, bad. Han Solo, bad. And now that they're in the corner, there's more space. You see, there's more space. There's more space for the ones that aren't the bad ones. So,
Thank you,
JJ.
Mr. Abrams. Before we move to open debate, we have a lot of chats that have come in. I want to read some of these.
Yeah, we're going to skip
briefly.
through the super
Larry
chats, of
for 2,
course.
Disney, Star Wars, Lucasfilm are in defense.
And we'll go right into the open debate.
The floor is now open for the defense and prosecution to open debate. And
Yeah, this
we
has
will
been the
go
week-
to a
the
final,
worst week
we'll
so
go to the
far.
final vote. Who do you think won the argument today? The defense or the prosecution, please.
I lost track of how
Can
many
I ask
times I
JJ
said that.
Abrams a question? Sadly, I don't want to hear the answer. But JJ, so when you were brought on to episode 7, why did you not take into account George Lucas's sequel trilogy outline, and why did you not have a plan and story beats for 7, 8, and 9?
There you go. Good question.
there are projects that I've worked on where we had some ideas, but we hadn't worked through them enough. We had sometimes where we had some ideas, but then we weren't allowed to do them the way we wanted to. I've had all sorts of situations where you plan things in a certain way, suddenly find yourself doing something that's 180 degrees different. And sometimes it works really well and you feel like, wow, that really came together. And then other times you think, oh my God, I can't believe this is where we are right now. And sometimes when it's not working out, it's because it's what you planned. And other times when it's not working out, it's because it didn't, you never really know.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate that. Exactly what I expected. For the defense, now I brought up Cobra Kai earlier, and my hypothetical question for the defense would be, let's say hypothetically Disney Star Wars actually did what Cobra Kai did. And what Cobra Kai did is it basically had a 30-year gap of, characters that, we had an attachment to in some way, shape, or form. We open up that story and we basically are introduced to the characters as we expected them to be in the opening. And then we start going on this path, and suddenly they subverted our expectations, which is something Ryan Johnson likes to say a lot. But with Cobra Kai, they did it in a way where they showed us, they established where the old characters were. When
I
we,
haven't
the
watched
ones
that series
we were
yet.
emotionally
I plan
attached to, we're going to reintroduce you to these characters
I used to
immediately.
like
We're
the
going to show you
Karate
where they
Kid
are in
movies.
life, and they are on opposite ends of the, what life has given them. And it's kind of what we expected. Daniel LaRusso is successful. He's a rock star. He's got a family. Everybody loves him. Johnny is just kind of drinking himself to misery. He's, losing his job. He doesn't have any direction in life. He's miserable. But as the story evolves, all of that changes. All of our expectations are changed. But in the process, we're introduced to new characters along the way. And then by the time the seasons start going into seasons 2 and 3, suddenly we start letting go of those old characters and we start caring about the new characters. If Disney Star Wars would have taken that approach, started us out where we expected to be,
like I said,
and then
Baron,
maybe
I haven't
evolve that
seen
story,
Cobra Kai,
all
so
while
I don't know.
introducing new characters along the way, by the time we get to episode 9, we, the audience, can be ready to let go of the old characters and embrace those new characters because we've been on a journey with them. Do you think we would be on trial today in a hypothetical situation if Disney Star Wars followed the Cobra Kai template?
No, we wouldn't
I'll
even
tackle
be
that
here.
unless someone else wants to. Honestly, no, I don't think we would. But the problem with that, because I believe in your hypothetical, I love Cobra Kai.
Well, in the
I think it's
movies, he
awesome,
was
think they
never
did a great
portrayed
job.
as a bully.
But I think the difference is we got that 32-year time gap from
I'm not
when
sure where you get that
episode
from.
6 aired to when episode 7 aired. So that's a huge gap in time. And Disney and all their
Yeah, I haven't
grand,
seen Cobra Kai
thought
yet.
processes thought, hey, we could just kind of skip that middle part, skip the middleman. People will love it because it's Star Wars, and so we'll just put them on their character path and kind of in the middle of it, and then we'll catch them up on the back end. So yeah, I mean, sure, there's plenty of other ways to do it. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, but is it the right way? Is it the wrong way? I don't know. I haven't seen that movie. I couldn't tell you.
Well, but I think specifically to the charges of today, it's the negligence of the legacy characters. And I'll look at Cobra Kai, and that you can never say that. You can argue that Cobra Kai has problems. You can argue that it has teen drama and it has cringy stuff. But what you can't argue is that it took care of the legacy characters, meaning Johnny and Daniel. And if Disney Star Wars have had that same care with the legacy characters, today's count would not be in court today. And we are talking about the mistreatment of the legacy characters. And I think, along with many people in the audience and the wonderful, wonderful ladies and gentlemen of the jury, they all feel the same way, that whatever good you can say of the Disney trilogy, the treatment of the legacy characters is not one of them. There's nothing good that came from that, from a fan standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, or the fact that Disney themselves even tried to give us a new Han Solo, and they failed at that too. So I think that across the board, Disney failed from that perspective on today's count.
So you said the treatment, and I'll agree with you there, 100%. They treated the characters like crap. That's not the charge. It's misuse.
Misuse.
Did they misuse them? And
Absolutely.
like I pointed out in my very brief rundown, and after this, I do want to get to that super chat where they talked about my research, because they paid good money, and I want to answer that. But what I said in the brief rundown is it plausible? Not is it the best choice? Not is it the choice that we wanted? Is it a plausible way that we could do it? I believe that they can. And before you answer that, because I know you're going to want to come back, that super chat, they said that wouldn't they pick up on the aunt and the uncle's quirks before Anakin and Padme? And yes, for the social aspects, but it is a lot of biological. Some of the research that you actually go into, people talk about like kids of sperm donors, how they act like the actual sperm donors themselves. So it's lots of detail, lots of depth, but yes and no. They did the social from who they're around, but there are biological factors that your parents go into. So I know that super chat did that. But anyway, back to you, D-Day Cobra.
And I would like to compliment the defense on the usage of heel versus babyface as with a lot of comedic elements of today. I thought that entertained the jury very well, and I would like to remind the jury that Az agrees 100% with my arguments of today. So the defense's best thing they did is utilize someone that 100% agrees with me and sides with, the fans of Star Wars. So there you go. Good job on that one, defense. Good job indeed. I was in tears on that one. That's a long time since I saw that clip. Does the defense have any questions for me? You're kind of losing, and maybe you can throw something at me. Maybe you can get me on something. Maybe, hey, listen,
Wow,
Dr.
this
Gordo,
open
please
debate's going for a little
chill on the Disney Kool-Aid. Slow down a bit,
questions
okay?
and final
And let's
thoughts.
just talk. Let's have a conversation. So I'm here. I'm all by myself. I don't have anybody
Should be wrapping
else
up hopefully in the next
So,
15
fire
minutes, I
away.
would think.
So you don't see the possibility that you're just projecting your emotions onto the film, onto the argument? The defense here, we're making references to, in fact, things that happen in the movie. We're using some social science, we're using literature, mythology, what have you. And all I'm hearing from you is hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, that's the whole point, is that they have hurt the Star Wars fandom. And you're damn right I'm projecting some of my pain into it, because that was what they were leaning on. They were leaning on my emotions. They were leaning on my emotions to give them money. They were leaning on my emotions. When I stood there in Orlando, Florida at Star Wars Celebration in 2017, before The Last Jedi came out, I stood in a room when they were releasing Battlefront 2 to the world. This was the premiere of Battlefront 2, and they
That's
stood
a
in
good
that
game,
room,
by the way.
and they sit there and said, "Are there any girl gamers in the audience?" And about 3 girls screamed, and I just looked around and I'm like, "What the hell does that have to do with Star Wars? What? That's not
Why
Star
would-
Wars.
yeah, I
that type
just
of
don't
language is
understand
not
that.
Star Wars." And that was kind of the first kind of moments that I realized they're not trying to do anything to benefit Star Wars. They're trying to push social justice elements into it. And unfortunately for us fans, the interjection of social justice meant the demise of our favorite characters. And
Your Honor, what does this have to do with the argument? I think if you look online, you can read negligence. It's the state or quality of being negligent, a negligent act or a failure to act. I think if there's any conversation you want to make with Disney Star Wars. It's that we acted too much and in all the wrong ways and overthought and chased our tails and did many foolish things, but it wasn't a lack of activity on the part of Disney Star Wars. I honestly believe this count should be thrown out the window completely. Negligent? No. Stupid? Sure. Negligent? No, we were not negligent. We did too much and the wrong
All right,
thing.
catch you later,
we
Tracy.
did not do nothing.
Thanks for stopping
we were
in.
not negligent. We did not
May the
neglect
fish be with
the Star
you.
Wars franchise.
Negligent.
Well, Mr. Abrams, you simply saying that it really needs to be backed up by the evidence. Just briefly, Mr. Cobra, we're gonna have another
I am
more
the
minutes.
Your
Just a
Honor.
moment. Just a few more minutes to vote in the poll. It's not looking good. Although I am shocked, the defense got a unbelievable 7% of the votes so far. 93% for the prosecution, but we're going to keep the poll open for another few more
The
minutes.
defense cheering for 7%.
We're going to keep
We
the
know
poll
it's
open.
not home field, buddy.
Because anything less than 100 would be a hung jury.
Listen,
Right.
I get the Captain Marvel bots for Rotten Tomatoes. I guess they're over here working overtime, and you can only get 7%. So hey, you got to get what you can get.
It's all right. Hey, Jeremy, I got a question for you. So,
Yes, sir.
in any of my presentation, was anything not plausible? Because the whole kind of idea that I took about this is that they took these old characters and put them in a place that they would never be. I feel like that in all of the different arguments that I brought up and the arguments that I addressed, there was a plausible way. Now, do we like it? No. But that's not whether or not we like it. It's whether or not, is there any way, shape, or form they could be there? So anything to refute on anything that I brought up in that.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever to say that Luke Skywalker would have walked away and been the hermit that he is. There's no evidence to show from a character standpoint from Luke Skywalker, the man who saw just a small piece of good in his evil father. There's no way that that man would be the person that we got, the man that stood there, and when Rey handed him that lightsaber, he just threw it over his shoulder and just scoffed at the idea. There is no possible scenario that that man would be who Disney decided to make him out to be.
Actually, there is.
No.
There are countless examples of great men in high positions. It's called the tragic fall. And Anakin,
We're talking about
the father
Luke
of Luke
Skywalker, not
Skywalker.
anybody else. We're talking about Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, but we're talking about Skywalkers, and Skywalkers in Star Wars are Skywalkers. They all represent the same cosmic force. And if Anakin can fall to the dark side, which the entire first 6 films is about, by the
Luke
way,
didn't fall to the dark side. He just became a miserable old man.
Did he not?
You know what?
Why did he go to attack Ben that night?
Actually, technically, Obi-Wan chose to go into exile to protect Luke.
But he never fell.
Watch
He never
over
fell
Luke.
to the dark side.
Excuse me,
though.
pardon me.
He wasn't forced by anybody to do
They
it.
didn't even own it. They didn't.
Him.
Other than if you
Crap,
want to
look
maybe
at the dang
talk
quote. He said,
about Order
"A shadow,
66.
like a
Yeah,
fleeting
maybe.
shadow left me, and then I was left with shame." He talks about it in that monologue, how the dark side convinced him that he needed to get rid of Ben. And as soon as he did it, he realized,
If
oh,
you've
crap, I
seen,
can't
if you've actually
my
seen,
thumbs are
if you've
touched.
actually seen, the prequels or even the Clone Wars, you would see that Anakin struggled with stuff a lot as a young man. Luke didn't struggle with dark side urges.
What
anywhere.
about the cave? What about the cave in The Empire Strikes Back?
It was
what
a
about the cave?
vision.
What? I'm sorry?
It was a vision. That's not struggling
No,
with
no,
any
no, no,
act.
no. Yoda says,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You only see what you take with you. The cave is.
There was no actions
Remember your
to
failure
show
at
this.
the
There was
cave.
no actions
Remember
to
your
show
failure
that
at
Luke
the cave,
Skywalker was
Yoda said.
struggling with the
You know
dark
what?
side.
You know what? It's fine if you want
But
to
that
paint
cave
rainbows
is
and
also
unicorns,
where the dark
onto
side of the Force lived.
and you say once somebody has hit the good side, they're the good side forever. They're
So
untouchable.
how could they actually walk into
water.
that cave
None
and
of
actually
us walk
see
on water.
the light
If
side of
anything,
the
we have
Force?
learned from mythology and high tragedy. No man walks on water. No man walks on water, but one that we know of. And guess what? Even he was tempted. Even he was tempted by the dark side. So
As
if you
I told-
understand mythology, sir, if you understand mythology, not entertainment now, not your stupid Cobra Kai high school.
Well, it's also more than just
melodrama
reflecting the
soap
dark
opera,
side, but it
if you
also
understand
was a
high
place where the dark
mythology,
side
you know
existed on Dagobah.
that heroes must be tempted and tested. and so was Luke. And
You
so
brought
was
up
Luke.
Cobra Kai. Do you realize Daniel LaRusso is literally what you're explaining, but now you're dismissing it? But they did it in a good way that made it believable. Daniel LaRusso was the perfect person, the perfect husband.
They did it in
the
a
perfect
soap opera
businessman,
way. They did it in a high school way. They didn't do it in a high mythological way.
Now he's at a point where we're cheering against him in points of the show because
No,
they've turned him into a jerk because of
You're just making my
storytelling.
point.
Because
You're
of story, but you
making
just
my point.
dismissed
You're
it.
showing
You just
Cobra
said it
Kai
was
is
stupid and it doesn't
entertainment.
matter.
Cobra Kai is entertainment. Star Wars is mythology.
Then why are we talking about real world in Star Wars if it's high mythology? Why is Kathleen saying we have to get rid of the white? Ryan Johnson is on record saying less white dudes in Star Wars, but it's high mythology.
Here.
That's what he said.
Down with
That's
the
what he
white
said.
man.
Why, if it's, you can't say it's high mythology, and then Kathleen Kennedy wants to say Star Wars needs to look like the real
can't have
world.
it
You
both
don't get to
ways.
have both of those arguments. No,
Actually,
you don't.
can, because it's
No,
Star
you
Wars
don't.
itself that's undergoing the hero's journey, and it has to go through its dark night of the soul. It has to descend into hell. And so that's what the politicization of Star Wars, the Catholic and J.J. Abrams, that they
So
brought
who
to the
gets
table.
who's the hero? Who's the hero of the sequel trilogy then? If it's about the hero's journey,
That challenged and tested all of us as fans.
Who's
And
the hero of
we
the
have-
sequel trilogy?
We have what it takes to appreciate Star Wars as a mythology, or are we going to get caught
Answer
up
the
in
question.
the superficial details?
Who's the hero of the sequel trilogy?
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I need to do that. My homework to watch
the
the first,
hero of
the
sequel
four
trilogy.
Karate Kid
The
movies,
Force
which I love
that
all
is the
those,
hero.
and then
No,
watch
it's
Cobra
the
Kai.
Force. The source
I've been
of
meaning to
Star
do
Wars
that.
and
I
the
just
source
haven't.
of all
I got
mythology.
wrapped up in other things.
Lord
Like
of the
right
Rings,
now, I'm watching
for that
One
matter.
Piece
The
anime
source of Dune.
because I watched the
just
live
to say that
action
we have
and it got
passion
me
for
hooked.
Just to show you how
And
much
now I'm
that
watching
failed,
the
I'm sharing
anime.
my screen. Sharing my screen right now. So Kathy says Star Wars new female character is extremely significant.
Extremely significant.
President of Lucasfilm calls on movie industry to do more for women and fuels speculation that Rey's character is, part of the Skywalker family. Now, you don't even mention Rey in the whole sequel trilogy. Now, you can't even talk about her as being a hero because you know what I'm going to point out is that she literally just hijacks the Skywalker name because they can't even let her be who she really is.
She's a
But Mr.
Palpatine.
Cobra, you accuse us of not discussing the legacy characters and then express dismay that we're not talking about the new characters.
No.
So-
What I'm saying
and
is
the
if you're
about the
not,
legacy
the
characters.
point was by the end of episode 9, you should have told a proper story, allowing fans and this universe.
Yeah, I
to
agree. Rey
revisit
has
where
nothing to
our
do with
legacy
it,
characters are, while also giving them a proper send off, while also introducing us to a new generation of characters that we would care about moving forward. They failed to do all of these things.
But the
All
one
of these
thing
things
that,
were
that
failed.
I see
Because
with this
if
is
you can't
they
sit there
didn't
and tell
leave
me
Rey to be a
that the
Palpatine.
hero
They
of
had
the
to go
story
and grab
is who
Luke
Disney
and
set out for it to
Anakin's
be, and that
name
was
to
Rey.
make it
You just
supposedly
proved my point
relevant,
right
I
there.
guess,
You
or
couldn't even
whatever.
tell me Rey was the hero because you know damn well she's not the hero because she's trash and Disney ruined all of the characters,
Well,
not just
if
the
I could
legacy
actually
characters.
ask Mr. Abrams, when you had Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford on set, and you told them you gave them direction as a director, did any of them ever say, "Well, no, I'm not filming this. This is so out of this character's wheelhouse. There's no way the audience is going to accept it, and therefore I'm not going to film it."
Mark
Or,
Hamill did.
because we saw what we actually saw in the film, it would seem that they agreed with your vision. Could you perhaps provide some clarification there? Did the actors
Yeah,
refuse
me
to
too.
do anything
When I
that you
first saw
directed them
Rey
to
in
do?
Force Awakens, I thought,
of course the
okay,
actors did
it's
whatever they
she's
wanted,
Rey
you know,
Skywalker, she's
whatever we
Luke's
needed them
daughter.
to do, and they were very happy to do it.
And
We
that would
were
make
paying
perfect
their
sense if they
bills.
went that direction, but they
You know,
didn't.
I think the most important thing for all of you to know is this is the first time I've ever met Mr. D-Day Cobra. I've never heard these brilliant ideas before. You know, if we had taken a meeting, like now, like it would have been like 15 years ago, but we could have fixed this stuff. It would have been great. It would have been great. I'm so sad that it took this long for these things to be. You know,
Well, I appreciate that, JJ. So you're basically saying all of my points
Yeah,
are valid
he,
and correct, and if you would have done what I said, everything would have been good. So thank you for
if I
proving
remember
my
correctly,
point.
he
Appreciate that,
eventually
JJ. That's the first smart thing
gets
you
with
said
Mara
all night
Jade,
long.
right?
Thank you, JJ Abrams.
Hold on, a point of contention with that, JJ. What I'm saying is There was no
He's his
ill
love
will
interest,
or
I
bad
think.
nature here. We were doing what we thought
It's been a
was
while.
the right
It's been
thing to do.
30 years
Then
since
why
I
didn't
read
you
the
pick
books.
up the phone and call
Well, I'm
George Lucas
rereading
when you
them.
had
It's like
questions,
reading them
seeing
all
as he
over
was
again. I've
there?
forgotten all the
I
stuff
wasn't
in this.
allowed to because of his tests internally and because it was deemed that the fans didn't.
Wait a minute, JJ, did you just tell me that you were not allowed to call George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, when Kennedy sat there across from him and said, we're going to lean on him? Are you telling me, are you telling the jury, are you telling this court that you, J.J. Abrams, the person that was tasked,
I'm telling you,
you couldn't call George because Disney wouldn't allow you? Is that what you're telling
I've got a boss, man. I've got a boss.
You're losing it.
But Mr. Cobra, by your own evidence, George Lucas would not have taken that call because they were broken up.
That's not true. No, you don't understand timelines.
George Lucas said
no, that was at the process of episode 7. They decided
saw
to move
the judge
on.
almost got his gavel
after they
out.
made the decision to throw away his script and throw away everything and move forward with a new vision, that's when George detached. But in the process of making 7, JJ could have simply said, I want George's vision. I'm going to pick up the phone and call George. We want to know what George wants.
He could have done that,
You're
but
making
they
the
didn't do
argument
that.
The only way to have a successful trilogy was to have George Lucas at the helm, and that's a completely different argument for another day. The argument here is that we were negligent in our misuse of the legacy characters, that there's some sort of evil intent going on here. I love Star Wars. Do you believe that I have a big enough ego that I want to look good for all time, that I want to walk around Hollywood and I want everybody to look at me and think, there's Spielberg too? Do you think that that's true?
Yes, 100% I believe that.
Is there negligence? Because it is embarrassing when you mess up a Star Wars movie and people are talking about it on the internet and putting your stupid movie on trial. This is not the way you would prefer things to be. So, no, there was no negligence. This isn't what we wanted to happen, or at least this isn't what I wanted to happen.
Okay, then why don't you answer for this? If we're to believe that, then answer for this, J.J. Abrams, right here. J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot introduces diversity quota. The filmmaker's production company to implement a new policy created in the wake of Oscar So White.
Don't you
Star
understand?
Wars: The Force Awakens has made waves casting John Boyega and Daisy Ridley, a young black man and a white woman, now leads figures the biggest Hollywood blockbuster of 2015. Now J.J. Abrams has signaled his ongoing efforts to help improve Hollywood diversity. So this means that you actively cast people based on identity
I don't
politics
know if
and
he'd
not
be in
to
the same,
complement the
if
story.
he'd be able to,
That is
because
of it.
Lucas was afraid he wouldn't be able to finish it. 10 years to make
I picked the best actors of authentic ethnicities.
Well, I appreciate this impassioned
This went downhill
arguments
quickly.
here. We have questions from our jury. Before we get to the results, I will go through the results, and they are surprising. First off, Mr. Insanity for
let's skip through
199.
there and go
Could we
to the
get
final
Star Wars
thoughts.
theory in court? We're going to go around the horn. Let's start with the defense first. Just your final thoughts. We're going to be very brief, as we've gone much longer today than normally. So just briefly, less than a minute if you can.
Just a quick moment, Your Honor, to commend D-Day Cobra on his one-man show for the prosecution. It wasn't an easy task. He was outnumbered, and so the defense just wants to send our respect to the prosecution in this today.
That's nice of him
and
to say that.
He did a wonderful job for making.
Because
this
those
case.
were unforeseen circumstances.
And excuse me, Mr. Alex, you have a 2-hour video that you sent me. We will put the link to your video in the description of this episode. If you could put it in the private chat, our producer, Ms. Coffee, will put it in the description of this episode. So if you would like to see the 2-hour video that Mr. Alex and his team created on his YouTube channel, we will make it available. I also want to remind people that the full charges for this case are available. The Google document with all 9 counts is.
I got that link down in my description
in
as
the
well.
description I interrupted you. My
And this
apologies. Mr.
document
House.
is
I want to make sure that we got
very
that
good,
in.
I think.
There.
No,
It really lays it out. It feels like a real legal document.
I also want to extend my my thanks and appreciation, obviously, to my defense team, and on behalf of the Cosmic Force, the true source behind Star Wars and the inspiration to everyone who has worked on Star Wars. We want to extend our thanks to the useful idiot J.J. Abrams, who joined us today with his humorous comments. And someday we might have an opportunity to disclose the actual esoteric origin and meaning of your mystery box, which you use all the time, but don't really understand why.
Oh, that.
Oh, by the way, are you still stuck in your mystery box, or did you get out?
No, yeah. I mean, here I am. It's
cool.
Just, I don't. How do you? Does it dissolve? I mean,
Mr. Abrams, we will return to you, Mr. Sam. Brief final remarks.
Final remarks. I just want to thank the jury for listening. I know it's easy to come into this with preconceived notions, and I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Disney Star Wars, but looking at the count, when it says we misuse legacy characters, that's just not true, guys. We just need to look at this and have our criticism actually make sense. That way we can get better movies. Because if we just keep throwing crap at the wall, nothing's going to stick. So I think everything's plausible. Is it the direction that I would have gone? No. But I don't think they misused anything.
Dr. Gordo, very briefly.
Very briefly, the appeal to emotion can be used for persuasion. However, to base an argument on emotion is a fallacy, and the whole argument just falls apart. You can Google it. I promise you that's true. And meantime, please see Elemental in theaters.
Elemental.
Mr. Cobra.
I don't think so.
Thank you so much for having me, Honorable Judge Gore, and the wonderful ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and also the defense. I got to say, they earned that 8%. They were entertaining as hell. Shout out to them. I had a lot of fun. I didn't know what I was getting into. I've seen some of the clips, of other, shows that's been done. I had a lot of fun. I think the audience had a lot of fun, and that's ultimately all that really matters. And we will stand up for Disney Star Wars, or stand against Disney Star Wars, and stand up for George Lucas's Star Wars until the end of time. And that's why I don't even watch it anymore. But hey, it was fun, and I appreciate you guys having me. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Cobra. Mr. Abrams, do you have any final words?
I do. I'm discovering this whole new world of these geek culture commentators today with DJ Cobra. I mean, this is amazing. And I've been listening to this great podcast, The Coolest Geek Alive. He was just talking recently about my films and what I should have done.
That's who's actually impersonating. I don't know who that guy is, though. I think he's been on one of these before.
There's a lot of good points were made. But the only thing I think needs to be said before we go today about this courtroom right here, this jury, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but they are the most biased jury, I think, in the existence of trials. I don't know if this is fair.
Well, we'll see. This is open to the public. There's no subscription required. Anyone can use YouTube.
Yeah.
And I have also, just to be clear, I have invited on many people on the defense. This is an open debate, and you can
fans were too afraid to show up.
Well, we'll see. We have some exciting guests coming up on future episodes of Critics Court. We're going to leave it at that. We're going to be looking at some of Mr. Blackwood's drawings.
Here we go.
Here, this looks like, is it J.J. Abrams riding a speeder on the moon of Endor with Jake Skywalker behind Mr. Abrams.
Jake
so it appears.
I remember that ride. That was a good one.
And some other drawings as well.
I think my favorite moment tonight was when I said, you guys see Star Wars, and JJ says,
in Carbonite, with Mickey Mouse ears on.
Mr. Blackwood, thank you again for your drawings. We appreciate
He's the best part of the whole trial, in my opinion.
Your courtroom sketches,
Really
very
love the
entertaining stuff. We're going to leave it. What is
Vader
that?
In the
That
middle
is
of
a picture
Empire.
Looks like
that's
it's
Darth
Doomcock.
Doomcock.
Yeah.
Doomcock is Darth
okay.
Vader. Well, maybe yeah. I actually had an email exchange with Doomcock. Did not respond. If you would like other YouTubers to appear on this show, ask them. I'm not a hard guy to reach. Thank you for that.
No, he's
Thank you
not.
for that.
Actually,
And that's gonna end it for us. Critics Court
I
will
talked to
return
him and
next
got
Wednesday,
permission from the
1 p.m.
judge to
Pacific
actually
time.
do this.
Drunk 3PO, that's Jay,
He responded
Drunk
within about
3PO,
45 minutes of me
and
sending an email
that
to him.
Star Wars girl will be on the prosecution.
Cool guy.
Members of the defense that are here today may actually return next week. So perhaps time to.
The only thing he asked me to do was to put a link
We're gonna leave it
to
at that. I want to thank
the
the jury
videos
for your time
and his
for
website. I mean, his
considering
YouTube, and I was
of the
going to do that
case.
anyway.
And that wraps it up for us. Thank you to our mods today, Lord Thoth and Mexican Iron Man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, apparently, I don't know if
assume
you
and I
ever
hope
remember
they'll
who
be
Chris
back,
Gore is.
Next week, and poll to open
He's,
JJ's mystery box.
We'll end it there, but Chris Gore was actually on the original G4 TV show, Attack of the Show. I don't know if you remember him or not, back like in the early 2000s, I think it was. And he's been doing Film Threat for a very long time. It used to be a movie. Yeah, I only caught it every now and then. I didn't watch a lot of it. But I do remember his indie movie magazine called Film Threat that eventually turned into basically a website and a YouTube channel and things like this. And when I saw he was doing this, I caught one of the, I forget which one I watched. I watched one of the episodes of this briefly, and I was intrigued by it. And then he made the comment that encouraging people to rewatch this stuff and things like that. So then I decided to just make sure that I could get permission to show this on my channel and rewatch them. So that's when it came up the idea, because I wanted to watch all of them myself as well. And I thought, well, I might as well see if I can stream it. And he was more than willing to let me. Really cool stand-up dude. And I plan on doing this again when he has Critics Court for Star Trek, which is the next one that's going to be put on trial, is Paramount's Star Trek. And I think eventually Doctor Who will be on there, and a couple others that maybe that he'll probably do, because he's going to do this more than once. So anyway, so today was definitely heated, and it was kind of crazy at times with the defense and the prosecution both. I think things were kind of definitely gone off the rails a couple times. Oh, Star Trek? Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to be doing this again next week when we come back for Count 8, which Count 8 is the blatant misuse of the expanded universe, the EU, like the Thrawn trilogy from Timothy Zahn. So that's going to be like next week. I don't know if they're going to bring that up or not, but that would be considered the EU, the expanded universe, which George Lucas himself considered to be canon. And one of the first things that Disney Star Wars did when they bought Star Wars was they made it to where the EU was not considered canon. Yet they've turned right around and still use parts of it. I mean, just like in the Ahsoka series that just ended last night. They had Thrawn in it. Yet they don't give any props or noting to Timothy Zahn at all, who invented Thrawn. They changed him so much. Well, they had to change him by like, I think 35% to not be considered the original work. I don't know all the legalities about all that, but nevertheless, should be interesting. Count 8, and then there's Count 9, and then there's also 2 more episodes after that. One of them being responses from the jury, and then also the last one is the actual verdict. So anyway, I'm going to end it there, and I'm not sure if I'm going to or not. I may come back in a couple hours and play Star Wars Force Unleashed on my channel here. If I don't do it today, I will start it at least sometime this weekend. So look for that to show up as a notification. If I do, it'll probably be about around 7 o'clock or so. Depends on when I can grab a bite here or not. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here. And as always, I'm the crazy little Star Wars penguin named WhataboutBob. And I thank you for watching the Critics Court Film Threats putting Star Wars on trial. Count 8. Catch you later, peeps. And may the fish be with you.